Hello, welcome to Waiting for Game, a podcast presented by Melee Stats. I'm your host, Gimme That Wheat. I'm here with my great friend. It's been a little bit, Ambi Sinister. I'm here with my good friend, Edwin. And then I'm here with someone who can be described as many different things. He can be described as a commentator, TO possibly, but probably most fittingly described as my cabin mate for an upcoming cabin themed Smash tournament. I'm of course talking about Chroma. What's going on, Chroma?
Hello. I'm very excited for Smash Camp. I think our cabin is going to do well in the most people throwing up versus during pickup basketball of any
Yeah,
cabin.
yeah.
We've got to lock down.
I'm expecting to probably not need to go to the hospital, but I'm expecting to like black out for a second after I try to dunk on Jim Jam Flim Flam or something. As I like absolutely fail in that sense. I expect to hit my head and kind of lose consciousness for a couple seconds.
Well, it's good you're prepared because you had a lot staked on that. I remember you telling him that it wouldn't be that hard to learn to dunk this year.
Yeah, well, the year's not over. And I
You've
said
got-
if I had a whole year.
You've got like 72 hours. That's enough.
I told him, and to clue everyone in on this, in September I met him in person. I met up with him. It was very fun. There I told him that given enough time I could dunk. He didn't believe me. I said, well, Allen Iverson can dunk. Russell Westbrook can dunk. People who are like around my same height, if not shorter. And he thought bringing up some of the most athletically gifted players of all time was maybe not the closest to my current ability. But then I did tell him that I was walking around one day. I saw a hoop. I was in jeans. I wasn't prepared. Yeah, I got like my fingers over the rim. It was. I said if I could do that without any prep, surely, I'm not that far off. But of course, this episode is not about who can dunk and who can't dunk. This episode is about a lot of things, and I guess fittingly, the first thing that we should talk about is Smash Camp. So Smash Camp is, I believe, this is the fourth iteration. We saw two in 2019, and I think one the year before. Or I'm making that up, or this is the third. But whatever it is, by this time already, it's already grown in the hearts of viewers and probably most notably attendees. This is something that I've never been to. I'm really excited to go, but I've heard so many amazing things about going as an attendee. Chroma, I know you've been. How many times have you been before?
I don't really remember. It kind of blurs. It's either 2 or 3.
Okay.
I remember there was one where it was hot and one where it was cold. And I'm trying to remember if there was a third that was either hot or cold or some sort of mix. I feel like it was 2. But I don't know.
Mix feel like it would be a third category, right? Like if it was 2 hot ones or 2 cold ones, I understand them blending together. But if there was like a temperate one, that feels like it would stand out enough on its own.
Right. And temperatures are going to be like, I don't know, 50 to 65. It's Arizona, but it's kind of up there a little bit. I would like to apologize for the cruel, terrible things everyone else but me has said about Smash Camp in the past, about how it shouldn't count, and it's a joke tournament, and that it's a Mickey Mouse convention. I mean, I'd like to apologize for everyone for all those things and admit that we said them, but not me. It was everybody else.
I actually don't think anyone else here said that.
I think we've been nothing but kind to these
I might have said that. I have to look my Twitter.
It might have actually only been practical tests. Now that
I think every wrong opinion we've had we can attribute to PTAS.
we just siphon it off to him.
He was the one who made that the COVID denial podcast episode. he was the one who did that.
The 7-hour COVID denial special podcast for super patrons only. And for super patriots.
But yeah, I mean, looking into this event, this is this is probably one of the first events that we've seen that with people like actually going out of state in a long time. We saw the town throwdown last week, which was cool. We got to see Magi play with people from SoCal and NorCal. But this is probably the first time we saw it since Smash World Tour, right?
It's
It's been a
watching
while.
watching the Town Throwdown just made me miss just live tournaments so much. You could hear the crowd, you could just hear Phil screaming. I got to mess with the commentators at the Town Throwdown. One was very drunk and one was very high, and one of them hadn't watched Khador in more than 3 months earlier. So it was really, I was in prime form. And it was just seeing everyone having a good time playing Melee, I think, is something very cathartic that we really haven't gotten to experience for basically a series of unfortunate events. And the communal, the communalness of Smash Camp is great. I always tell everyone don't go because it always hits cap number one. I just kind of want space for people, I'd like to see to go, which is extremely selfish of me. It's a very unique event. I always say that, if it's your first event and you don't know too many people in the scene, it might be a little bit tricky because, you're really out there. You're in the middle of nowhere. There are cabins. There's being outdoors. There's, making sure you've brought enough food. These are things that are advanced. These are hard things. These are difficult challenges for the Smashers to overcome. And it's not very close to an airport. But it just speaks to the quality of the event, how quickly it caps, and how enthusiastic everyone who's there. It's really more like a festival. It's the closest thing to a European style major that we have, having never been to one.
Well, yeah. Maybe the competition is how does the competition stack up to the European style majors? Edwin, I know you are one who has always got an eagle eye for what's going on in brackets. We don't have a bracket just yet. What we do know is that there's going to be a pretty good smattering of top players. We've got SFAT, Face Roll, Fiction. I believe Moki is going. I could be wrong about that. But we have the person we just talked about. We have the guy who won the Town Throwdown. We got Khador. Looking at this, just like this group of players, I think is something that doesn't stand out to me as that unusual, but it's still cool. Like in these days, seeing a LAN tournament where it's like, yeah, this sounds about right. It's like that's a welcome respite from all this online stuff we've seen. But yeah, Edwin, what do you think going into this bracket?
Well, I just want to say what a lovely introduction. I got a lot to I got a lot to work off that. You're right. I did have my eye on this event. I took a look at the entrance list beforehand. One thing I'm quite excited for is the return of a lot of competitors, or at least a group of competitors that we don't really see that much, like competing in a high stakes tournaments nowadays. Like we have Duck coming back. Apparently he plays Marth or something now.
Marth,
So,
right?
yeah. So I'm excited to see how Duck fares in bracket. I'm really excited to also see Rio beat, and in capacity as a competitor. I still think that guy is pretty good. I'm curious to see how he'd perform. I think he'll be fun to watch at this event. Squid is playing as well at this tournament, and I think we're seeing Albert as well.
Yeah.
Just in general, a lot of really good West Coast players who we kind of saw. Like, I mean, Rio Beat's not West Coast, but the general theme of a lot of players who we've seen be a bit like sporadic in their activity, if not just outright inactive lately, that are all kind of converging at this tournament. So I'm pretty interested to see how they turn out. And I think at the top level, like, yeah, I mean, you said it pretty well. One thing I would add is that I think what made the Town Throwdown really fun to watch, at least from the outside, is that I think as people from the Northeast, I think it's like we kind of take it for granted. Like if there's a big New England event, that there's going to be New Jersey players there. There's going to be people from Tri-State and whatnot. So I think some regions it just tends to be easier for them to consolidate all their players together. Like I think the Midwest is a really good example of that. And the Town Throwdown was like NorCal, but it had Magi fly up. It had people from SoCal there, obviously, as well, like Khador and whatnot. So if this is another example of like a big regional or like a big event featuring a lot of good West Coast players in a way similar to how there's Midwest events that feature people from Illinois, Ohio, Michigan, whatnot, and people in the Northeast across states, I think that's a really good sign. I'm excited to see this event. I wish I could go. It just wasn't in the cards for this year, but there's a lot to look forward to.
Do you think you would have been able to go? Like this caps so quickly. Do you think you would have had the ability to do that? Like would you have had the sneaker drop fingers like being able to put all your information in?
Drip or drown, baby.
I don't know.
That's a no. No shot.
That's an absolute. Edwin doesn't have it.
No, I
Maybe
think
in
it'll-
2023. Maybe
Hmm.
maybe then.
We'll see. By 2023, you might be. I've cooked up a couple different scenarios where you're just banned for the community.
A couple. Oh no.
Weed actually has been working on this a lot lately.
I've not been I've just been like having that So Raven-esque visions of Anoke doing the wrong thing, and the community just like really putting its foot down.
I like the
Doing
one
the
where
wrong thing.
Or-
What does this mean?
Homemade Waffles is doing really well to Major, let's say, and
Oh, no.
you're excited.
Yeah, you see, he takes a game off of Zealot, and you decide to shout for your friend who you're on a
Oh,
first
got
name
it.
basis with.
Got it.
That rules, by the way, that you can't say you hate the president anymore. I just, that's something I say at least twice a week. I mean, I really don't get, it's very confusing to me.
We'll get your own segment on the show where you can talk about how much.
Yeah, you have to win
like
the
or
stock
dislike
exchange.
the president.
I
Next time
I
we
was
have one.
promised 85 minutes about this.
This is a political podcast, right?
Yeah. Welcome to Chapo Smash House.
But yeah, no, I think there's so Edwin, you are going to Genesis as far as I know. You're signed up at least. And I think that, without trying to spend too much time on this, there are probably like 4 or 5 different scenarios where you immediately get banned. One we talked about that where you got beat up, but I think that you end up getting banned for this also somehow. Let's say there's someone currently number 1 on the PGR contenders list who owes Melee Stats money.
This one will happen. Yeah, actually, this is.
I was talking to Edwin about how to broach the subject with this guy who will
It's
call.
just a total lose-lose,
we'll
right?
call
Like,
Mango.
even in a situation where with this hypothetical player, I'm completely unambiguously in the right. I have every right to confront this person, and Alex just from the side with a
From
chair.
the top rope, dude.
Yeah,
So
the
just to-
idea is you walk up to
Oh,
this
Brock
player and you
Sampson.
go like you told me you're an inch taller than him, so like you got the high ground. You walk up to him and you go, Joseph.
We should explain this a little bit. So Edwin has actually been, and as probably a lot of you patrons know, because this is how he's trapped you, Edwin has been engaging in a bit of side betting on Melee tournaments, which is really his true calling. And, if you win, you get his money, you win Ben's Knight's money, and if you lose, you have to join the Patreon, is how it mostly goes. And Edwin's stakes have been going higher and higher. Of course, when you win, you should double up. You should just let it all run again. And Edwin, I think at this point is what is it, like a couple $100 bets with Schmango?
Yeah, exactly.
And you're 1-1 right now, right?
Yeah, 1-1.
Which I was worried because the first time I was like, uh-oh, he's gonna come into the patron chat and we're gonna have to delete like everything. I don't know what we
Notable
said.
Mango haters and Melee stats.
Yeah, noted
I don't think
in
that's it.
noted Mango haters, absolutely. But the second time you won, but you have counterparty risk here. And you know what that means is that if he
Yeah, I was gonna be like, you gotta come on.
the way to put this, it's like if you owe the bank $100, that's your problem. If you owe the bank $100 million, that's kind of the bank's problem, isn't it? They're not getting it.
Yeah, there's no way I can win this, right? Like
You can't collect
No.
from Mango.
No, you're done, man.
So what
Oh,
happens?
Dude, you got scammed. How do you think he made so much money?
so here's
For
the
being
scene,
honest.
right? Here's the scene, right? After multiple attempts to kind of, settle the score, I finally go up to him,
Wait, so
try to make myself
trying to, do a
serious
hit?
at a score at an event, and Alex 19 is just does not have any of it. Immediately goes 0 to 10 really quickly. And
I
just-
don't think it has to be multiple times. I think the first time you walk up to Mango and you go, Joseph, I think he picks you up like you're a cartoon character and just goes, and,
Yeah,
Mr.
and
Marquez,
you just become flat, and then I have to
Can I have the
bring
money?
you out like you're a blanket or something.
Like an accordion.
And of course, in this situation, I mean, not only do I lose because Alex kicks the shit out of me, but everybody gets upset at me.
Yeah,
you somehow get
it's
banned.
your
This
fault
is-
for
this is
sure.
Yeah, I
grounds for
somehow
ban.
get banned from the scene.
Edwin greedily attacked Mango.
You really shouldn't have made that joke about breaking his kneecaps before you went up to him.
This is they just we're at kind of a transitional time in the scene's lifespan where we really have to just make examples out of people, and unfortunately they had to throw the book at you. I really hate for it to be you are the guy, but it's like you got to make an example out of someone.
Look, Edwin, this is how justice systems go. To ever touch the powerful people, we have to. The only logical response, the only one that will work, is that if we make all of our laws so strong that you're going to get 25 to life for this, and this is what's going to happen.
This is the perfect discussion for Smash Camp, by the way. This is so on topic.
Yeah, Smash Camp rules. I gotta say, so as you were going through the player list, I was thinking, well, that person might actually just be there to see some friends and like play Marth haphazardly in teams and maybe not care. But I will say, like, anyone that makes it in deep into this bracket cares. They are trying as much as any other tournament. Like Mango, I think the last time, and obviously I don't, my Sky Cam on Mango is not operational lately. I think one of the dogs probably found it and ate it, which is why I'm not getting my data. But yeah, I really didn't see him most of the weekend. He was mostly just practicing. I mean, he was trying pretty hard. Everyone there was, a combination of enjoying themselves and then just grinding like a lot. Like there were cabins of exactly, like I think I went on some runs. I saw some people go to the lake, or people were just cooking. Violence always cooks. And some people I think I really didn't see outside of their cabin for most of the weekend.
The trend test here is fiction.
I have no idea.
I have no read. I think there's like a just about as even chance that he never leaves his room and he only plays Falco against various opponents
that are brought to him.
He like doesn't even enter bracket because he's like on top of a tree in the middle of the lake.
He's trying to find people to kayak with and everything.
I guess the best question here is, what is weed's legality status in Arizona?
I think, I went running around the area and I saw more like I will shoot you if you walk within 100 yards of my property than I've seen anywhere else. But, the camp is pretty self-contained, I will have to say.
All right, yeah, so it's about like how much of a chiller Nick Yingling is.
Pretty much. Who is a super chiller, also gives himself ulcers every single time this event runs. Mikey and Yingling and everyone who runs this, they deserve everything. I gotta say, one thing that I just realized looking at this, I'm also kind of happy it isn't the biggest thing because like the yard boys are going. And this
we got the weird. Do we have everyone?
Yeah, I think I'm not sure exactly. I gotta take another look. I don't know who's gonna bail, but like the last Smash Camp, like stuff I can't say this when it's recorded. But it's kind of, it's an intimate affair is really all I'll say. So it's kind of, I think, nice that those boys will not get so just flooded by a huge amount of people, even at Riptide, when it was Aiden. It was just Aiden and Nick Envy at the end of the day, because I think Slime's back hurt and Lud had something that he had to do, and they were still getting mobbed. And this is like where they grew up in Smash, Like imagine Lud at Genesis. I can't think about what that looks like.
Yeah, probably pretty wild.
It's probably pretty wild, and so it's kind of nice to have something that's maybe a little bit chiller.
I mean, we'll see.
We'll see. I mean,
I think Smash Camp is one of those weird ones because to me, it's like the most chill and also the least chill event to possibly exist, just sort of by construction.
How least chill? Because I think I see your point, but I don't really.
Well, it's like exactly. A rager in some sense, right? Like at least for some subset of the people there. Like,
here's the thing that I've observed over my years in the scene, and absolutely you guys have too. Every event can be a rager or a non-rager. Because there's always some VIP area of top players that has way too much alcohol, and we don't know how they got it, and we don't know why they're drinking it now. And it's just, how like these tournaments, I was talking to Epango today, I was talking to Zane, and how before the function got postponed, IBDW said he was going, and then instantly, Zane and Mango said, I want to go. I want to get into it. And so impromptu, if one of them starts, they all start. And this happens with like turning tournaments into ragers as well. And I think top players are looking for some sort of strong man to guide them and to say, this counts, this doesn't count. An iron fist. If only we had a Generalissimo in the scene strong enough to do what was right. Edwin, what do you think?
Well, I think that you know what? I'm going to defer to Wheat here. Actually, I'm sure. I think as much as I like being, as much as I like taking charge, as much as I like telling other people what they should do, which I love. Don't get me wrong. I think any good leader knows his
Oh,
experts
he's gonna do the appraisal thing. Wait,
and
can you
then
just talk?
people who know
Boo.
This
more
is
about
this is
the
where he
topic.
calls himself the Bill Belichick of
Boo.
Melee again. Yeah. So first off, I want to say that there's a pretty big bug in my room right now. It's not very close to me, but it's got wings apparently. See, it looks like it's a stink bug.
You're ready for Smash Camp.
There's like at any second if I just like jitter or something, it's normal.
Mhm.
It's also I don't know, trick of the eyes. Maybe it's the light. It looks like it's getting bigger, which I know can't happen. But it truly looks bigger than it did when I first saw it. But to get onto this topic at hand, so Jake, I think you made a great point. It's as someone who I've considered myself a front row freak at concerts. I try to get front row at every concert I can go to. I love going to see live music, and one thing that I've noticed is that so moshing can happen at anything. Moshing's more likely to happen at stuff that's going to be upbeat, punk type stuff. But I've been to stuff that has not been that upbeat. And the second they hit a certain threshold of like BPM, people will just be like, okay, we're legally allowed to do this now, and then they just start pushing each other. And that's kind of like how it is for tournaments like that, right? Like not necessarily going to be a rager, but it like has the ability to become one, and because of that, it means that it very well could be. Before we get into what counts and what doesn't count, do we just want to do our due diligence? And I think it's like SFAT's here, Sparks here, Kadoran or whatever. Do you guys just want to do a toss up, and should we all just say Kadoran's gonna win so we can like have a prediction before we go on?
Free
That's bad,
Palestine
has it?
W.
Oh, sorry, Ambi, go right ahead.
I mean, I said my piece. Free Palestine.
It's a great Smash Camp pick.
That's
Plays well. He's got the crowd. They love him. He did great last time.
I believe I said Moki was going, which I think he signed up at one point, but he's not signed up currently.
Yeah.
Also not signed up currently. Cody IBW is supposed to be going, and then must have unregistered at one point. Axe is going just to hang out. He's got some issue with his thumb or whatever. So like we still have some good people who are here. I mean, Face Roll's here. Face Roll I think is very good. Yeah, there's a cool little like you've got Face Roll Spark, who would do pretty well versus Kadoran, and then you've got SFAT who will do pretty well versus the Sheiks, and then you have Kadoran who does pretty well versus SFAT. I think there's like a pretty clear top tier here, but it's got a nice little rock paper scissors type thing. Edwin, one word, who do you think's winning?
Yeah, let's go with Kadoran. Sure, sounds good.
Cool. So we're in agreement. It's all Kadoran.
I have so Godoran, I love him. There can be no denying of his power and his might. I do want to just check because this player is signed up, and I'm not entirely sure they're going. So it's a little unclear. Do you know what's going on with the Australians?
I don't believe they're going to this. I think they were signed up at one point.
Okay, yeah, because Josh Man is signed up, and that's my dark horse. I think Fiction gets stuck under the lake or something and misses his match because he's meditating down there.
Fiction definitely. Someone gives him ayahuasca or something. Like
he gives himself ayahuasca.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Cut the tape.
I've had very good experiences with. Hey, I'll even call him Shep to show that we're close. I've had very good experiences with him. Is he self-sufficient enough in the ayahuasca like territory?
Probably.
Okay.
He's been through many battles in his time.
Okay. Because I don't know if I like was in a situation where I wanted ayahuasca, I don't know if I could get it. So I the fact that he is not in the same situation as I am and would be able to get
He's
it for
a
himself.
top player.
He is a top player. That's true.
Yeah, let it be known that anyone listening to this podcast, we're not stating fact or
Right.
not. We're not making any allegations.
I've been lying mostly the entire
We're
time.
just saying if someone wanted ayahuasca.
So if we could bring it back to Smash Camp very briefly, I do think that Sora is a fun pick because I think that he is, if he does go,
I truly don't think he is.
If he is, it's his home court.
I think it's so likely that he'll be able to talk to his opponent during the set.
Oh, yes.
True, yes.
So he's like, oh, maybe he's like a top 40 player. Like, no, he's like a top 10 player because he can talk while playing. It's
Throw a couple of these guys in
against the vibe. Yeah, no, he's unstoppable.
The unreleased set of him, like shit talking Sunsei in the Genesis. I literally forgot what we called it, even though I worked on it. Yeah, there's an unreleased set where he just like destroys them because they both have mics on, and then they go mics off, and it's like last game or something. Yeah, no, Sora would be a super fun pick if he's going. I wonder. I'm pretty sure he's not going to this. I wonder what's going on for Genesis though. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I'll go. Fiction's gonna be, somewhere else. Kadoran is now becoming the favorite, and I feel like, I don't know, I've had very good experiences with him. But is it fun to pick the favorite?
Oh, dude, Anise is gonna beat him.
All right, I'll just say Zamu.
That's a good pick. That's acceptable.
Zamu will, he will be on the same thing as Fiction, whatever Fiction chooses that weekend. But Zamu will like use it to his advantage. He'll like hone in, and he'll be like hitting every, like he'll be like reading their text before they even think about it, before they even get hit.
It'll be like Cyrox at the Mango. Very similar kind of performance.
Out of the chaos comes a true champion.
Speaking of the Mango, Edwin, we are looking at Smash Camp. We're talking about, something like this. This is a very jovial event. This is an event that it's very different for the person who just enters to be there, or just is going to go 0-2 or something like that, than the people who are in at the end, right? Like, if you look at what Smash Camp means to the attendee, it's a lot different than Genesis or the Big House or something. The air of competitiveness is kind of all over the place because this is an event where people do want to win. I mean, the whole thing about Mango and Smash Camp End of Summer was that he lost to, was it was Spark and was it Amsa? I forget. But he did not win the event that he was slated to win. And then this whole thing about like, well, this event shouldn't even count. Axe was going Young Link, or like people were drinking, and it kind of, along with the Mango, begs the question of like what should count for MPGR, right? The MPGR for a while, the top 100 for a while, has used this idea of if it's like a LAN tournament, it counts, right? It's instead of there being a governing body that says, okay, well, you got a DQ, so you ended up underneath 16 entrants. Sorry, this local doesn't count. Instead of having something like that where it's like you don't really know what's going to count or what does count. It's just the kind of blows right past that question. It just says it does count, right? It's like if you go to something, it does count. Whether or not someone cares if you go 8-1 with null or whatever, like that, that's a different story. But people recently have kind of wondered if there's something else to go with this. And I think that Smash Camp is a good jumping off point because this is something that's been historically, very fun, a very, for some people centered on competition, for a lot of others centered on not competition. And, obviously we are seeing all these online tournaments. So I guess we've already talked about online before, but, I haven't heard from Chroma. I haven't heard from Ambi. We had an episode about it before. But yeah, I mean, I think this idea of the MPGR, especially as we get into a time where we don't really have an official start date of the MPGR. I think it's been kind of implied that it's already begun, but there was no real official announcement. It kind of is a little confusing time for the top 100 or, for whatever rankings we have. Edwin, I know you are a man who you love rankings. You've been making ballots. I'm pretty sure longer than I have. I think think you did your first one before I did my first. Yeah, what are your thoughts on how the top 100 works in this sense?
So okay, well that let me sit on it for a bit.
All
So
right,
just to kind
Ambi,
of
you're
like
someone who's been doing ballots
well
for a
well let
while.
me well
No,
let
I'm
me let
happy
me
to
answer really
let
let
Edwin
me
collect his
yeah,
thoughts
let me answer really quickly. I
during other
think in
people's turn.
general, the way I've always seen it is that I think more data is good, and I think that it's on panelists to kind of like each individually, but also like together collectively, as my good friend Ambi Sinister has put it so eloquently in his Planet Bandits piece, which I still cite all the time, that the whole point of like having results of tournaments is that like you have more data and you have more things to factor in when it comes to evaluating results from people who attend tournaments and who do well at them and show enough times that they care about competing against other people and doing well. It doesn't mean that every set is equal. It doesn't mean that every set carries the same amount of weight. It doesn't even mean that every set is predictive. But it's good to have more information and to have educated panelists do their like diligent research to determine, what sets count more than others, if that makes sense. So maybe this is naive me, but I've always taken an approach that more data is good. Panelists can generally be trusted to like evaluate data accordingly and to do their diligent research, at least among the panelists I've talked to. And I think this whole idea of like what counts, the fact that it's popping up right now, if I have to be really honest, I think it says a lot to the kind of to the high level of unsatisfaction I think people feel with, just quite frankly speaking, Panda and how they've handled the whole ranking scenario.
Ambi, if you wanted to take it, I'm happy to
Yeah, I
hop
mean,
in. But if you,
I can jump in.
because
Uh,
I saw when it's more data is always good sort of a thing. But
yeah. I just think this whole conversation is really dumb. And like maybe that's a little ridiculous of me, but like I don't know. I I've been around long enough to fondly remember a time where Mango would get blackout drunk and like still win, and he would lose to Kage, and people would be like, "Wow, Kage beat Mango." And I feel like nowadays there's this weird thing where like a player's choices at a particular event can or cannot make the set valid or invalid. Um, and I think that's so lame. I think that's so stupid, right? Because I think that like if you're gonna play Yoshi or something, um, no reasonable panelist is gonna be like, well, you lost to Miffy or something.
Unless you're up.
Yeah, I mean, well,
One
uh,
exception.
yeah, but like, I think that like this whole like crazy anxiety about like what sets count and what sets don't count. Like, how many sets are you going to play at a particular turn? You can only lose twice. You at worst you get 2 additional losses. And like if
I've
we're
like
gonna write down what
hundreds,
characters
not
you play,
thousands of
like this is
sets.
gonna do nothing. This does nothing to anyone's ranking, whether it counts or doesn't count. It's so marginal. And like I just think so. I just think it's all about like this weird ranking obsessed mentality that a lot of players have with every single set they ever play. Like they can never allow themselves the enjoyment of playing the video game if like their reputation is on the line if they play a secondary or something. And they want like safe zones where like people don't pay attention to any set that happens in the whole tournament. Uh, like why, dude? Like if I'm trying at a tournament and you decide you want to get drunk and play Yoshi, like rock on, go do your
Yeah.
Yoshi thing. Like no one's gonna like no one's. We don't need to destroy the whole tournament. Uh,
It's
we
throwing out
can
the
yeah
baby with the bathwater, right?
yeah.
It's
It's
like
so
it's like
stupid.
I'm kind of bored of my main. Let me go Donkey Kong for a tournament. But I want to go
Yeah
Donkey Kong, so that means that uh this Texas player who traveled all the way here means that doesn't count for them, right?
yeah. Like
It's
if you want to play Donkey Kong, rock on, dude. Remember when Plup did that? Like in
Yeah, I was gonna.
2017, he like went like Luigi and Falco and shit at a bunch of tournaments. He lost to like Kaon. Like he didn't.
yeah.
We
Where
didn't
did he end
move
up
him to like
ranked?
15th or whatever. Like he still was placed quite highly in the rankings. It did nothing. People recognized that people beat pleb secondaries. Like he did it at like CEO Dreamland. Like no one's gonna be like CEO Dreamland didn't count. Pleb went Luigi. So I think this is so stupid. There doesn't need to be like a tournament level invalidation of events because some people want to drink alcohol at it, or some people want to play secondaries, or some people are more interested in basketball or hiking or whatever the fuck. It's just like so stupid, dude. We could figure it out. We're panelists. That's like what we do. It's the whole point of having us.
I have some thoughts on this, and I think it pertains to a lot of other things that we've talked about, but it is a really worrying trend in the scene because, when I play it out in my head, my crazy person head, I don't think it ends super well most of the time. And here's what I mean. We could have a set group of events count, and obviously you can't do that at the start of the year. A lot of people don't even plan their big regionals or even majors at the start of some year. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to enter. You don't know the relative weights of what counts. Something like tennis only happens because of massive amounts of institutional buy-in,
Yes.
huge contracts that hurt players when they don't show up, and a very agreed upon incentive system that again only works because there are a bunch of powers that be that developed over a huge amount of time with big businesses behind them like Wimbledon or the big majors or something like that. Exactly. And some cash that we really don't have. And there are a couple of instances that I think of when I think of okay, even if we had a situation where PTAS looks at it on Wednesday and says, this counts, this doesn't count, even in the best of faith, one thing that did actually upset people, and, I was joking about this in the beginning, and it was, at the end of the day, a telephone game of people misunderstanding what people were saying. But, Smash Camp had this correct, this correct sense that it was a tournament for fun. You went to see friends and drink and be outside. But for a lot of people, and I would say most of the people who entered that tournament, that was a serious place to play some Melee and to compete against people. And a couple of people decided, oh, well, I'm just going to have a good time and it shouldn't count. That doesn't mean that everyone who traveled across the country automatically all have their sets just totally abnegated. You know what I'm saying? Free Palestine beat Westball. So that counts. I don't know what to tell you. Ryubi gets good wins. It counts. I actually forget how Nico did at that tournament.
Spark beat AMSA that tournament
Spark
also. It was really exciting.
AMSA. It was incredible. That was incredible.
One of the only times I remember people talking about another player actually getting rooted again, getting rooted for against AMSA, which is so rare.
Spark
right?
played, and I don't know if the event, it's hard to stream because it's in a forest, so people didn't really have an appreciation. I think there are VODs, I don't remember, but it was the most beautiful end of the last game that anyone we had ever seen, really. It was amazing what he did. And he beat Mango. And Face Roll almost beat Mango.
Yeah.
Those sets count. I don't know what to say. You can't just have a situation, okay, let's have a situation like the Mango. There was one where he gets drunk. He does not lose to Billy. I believe he loses to Kalamazoo. And then all of a sudden you have this huge sort of, domino effect where everyone just decides, well, okay, it doesn't matter. So we're all going to
if you want to hold this against Mango, that's fine, right? If you want to be okay, well, the Kalamazoo set is not a real win.
Well, I don't know, because you can argue to be super unfair to Mango, and this is very controversial, and it's not how I actually do the ballot, but our job is to evaluate how people do over the year and say, if they all entered a tournament, you can run it as many times as you want. How would they do? I don't know. I think 7% of the time Mango gets blackout drunk. And maybe that impacts his ranking. Maybe that's not fair. I think it's unfair, so I don't do it. But I think it's ridiculous to have this situation where it feels like players are afraid of competing, in view of how it can affect their perceived rank. And, Ipengo talked to me about it today. And, I also share this point, but I have to attribute it to him because we talked about it today. And he said, look, everyone thinks they should just be ranked higher than they are. And there is a lot of natural worry about something if you're a player that will deeply affect you. If you turn out here versus there, maybe it impacts sponsorship, but really it's how you feel about yourself and it's how the scene perceives you. And it's a bit reflexive in that sense. We're not as bad as tennis where you have to get higher rated if you aren't going to play Nadal round 2 at a major or something like that, right? We have some give and take, but it's a little bit like that, but it's so not. I really think we're in a situation where people are just afraid of competing. They're weighing each situation where they show up to a tournament and saying, well, I don't know how this affects my perception and rank. And you're asking them to trust panelists. You're asking the community, and this is what I get worried about. You ask the community to trust panelists on one side. And on the other side, you have top players saying, well, I heard that if I enter locals too many times, I'll get ranked 3 spots lower. And everyone just says, oh, well, that's how it goes. I mean, you had this, and, I love Toph and Hugs, but you had this ridiculous interchange on social media where I don't think it was Hugs actually. I have to look at it
It was
again, but
us.
it was Hugs where they were like, and then they're talking about how it hurts top players ranking to enter locals, and Leffen came at this too. But I think Toph said something like, yeah, Amsa told me that he doesn't enter locals anymore because he's worried about the rankings. And Amsa comes in the response and says, hey, by the way, that's not true at all. Also, I was number 1 in Japan the last time I tried. And Toph's like, yeah, but wasn't it weird that I thought that? And if you put us, charismatic, lovely people as we are, but us versus the biggest names and luminaries in our scene, top players, I don't think we win that. So if they just all decide, like, here's how it's going to go, locals aren't going to count. I'll be able to retroactively decide whatever major performance I have not counting. Or I'm going to say only my best 3 major appearances should count for rankings. And this is what you have to figure out. What they say might end up going in the court of public opinion, and that kind of worries me.
Yeah, so one thing I want to just to piggyback off what you're saying. So like I wrote about this type of dilemma. What you're talking about, it kind of perfectly encapsulates like this dilemma that I wrote about earlier in the week, right? And like this is this idea that like and the Smash ecosystem, broadly speaking, has like 3 types of people, right? There's top players, there's TOs, basically event organizers, and then there's like content creators or like miscellaneous contributors to the scene, right? And like the amount of
And
sway,
normal people.
Normal
yeah,
people.
yeah. There's
No, those don't
normal
exist.
people. There's normal people. That's the invisible fourth category. We'll get into that
silent
later.
majority.
Dude.
Yeah, the
Oh
silent
my God.
majority. But
This is gonna be a 20-minute rant. He's gonna have slides.
I
and
went on a
stuff.
while, so you gotta let him go.
yeah, no, I mean, I just
How
think
this
that like
works.
the sway that top players have over the public opinion, a lot of it comes over the fact that like out of those 3 categories of people who are necessary for any competitive ecosystem to work, forget about Smash for a second, any kind of like good ecosystem for a competitive community, you need to have like those 3 like groups working
I don't know,
in
dude.
tandem. This is
I
personnel.
don't know.
This
I
is
don't
how
know
the
if you.
world
I don't know
works.
if you
Oh my
need the
God.
content
Not
creators.
No,
personnel.
I don't
no,
think
you
you
do. That's
No, you
incorrect.
don't.
you need them to
You
not
needed
create
to have you needed to have a
cults.
good, healthy like you need to have like think of it like a vehicle, right? Or like a ship. Everyone's got to play their role. You don't think like personnel.
Strong man, Edward
All
comes
life,
down.
dude. You ever
It's
hear the
naval
quote?
law now.
You ever hear the quote? Nothing personnel, kid. That's actually wrong. It's everything personnel, kid. This is how it goes.
All
But
right.
anyways,
I don't know if
back
you're.
to a serious point.
You just
Like
put a
top players.
cold steel the hedgehog. I'm not
Yeah.
sure if you get to go back to your point.
No, it's the yeah. Well, the point I'm bringing up is that they have a lot of sway. It's because they're the only people that like, as a group collectively. I know there's exceptions to the rule, but they have an independent like revenue model that is separate of like going to tournaments. So when top
not.
players talk about like, well, I mean like,
You're
in the
right though.
sense
I mean, you're
that,
right.
like,
We'll get to that.
yeah, in the sense that like top players feel like going to a tournament, if it's not Genesis, the Big House, or Summit, in 99% of cases, they truly think that it is just not worth it for them. This whole idea that like, oh well, like I don't go to this tournament because it'll affect my rank or whatever, it is bullshit. It is obscuring the larger truth that these people do not think it's worth it for them to go to tournaments. And when they stop going to tournaments and when they find out that their stream's not doing as well as they thought it was, that their content outside of competing is not as good as their actual content of them competing, it's a wake-up call to them.
I think
I-
there are a lot of ways we can go. Ambi, did you have something before I start segueing us into the next thing?
No, I'm kind of zoning out.
Well, here, I wanna talk about what So like we obviously, as the content creators or whatever, whatever like
the third estate. You know what I'm
whatever
saying?
pillar we have,
Very important.
Secret power.
we all have ballots here. Like in a sense, we are the ones who are actually doing the work. But yeah, I mean, we all mention it when you talk about it, the top players are the ones who will sway public opinion. And I think what's helping right now is the top players all kind of are not actually on the same page as they think they are. Like they are kind of saying the same thing, but they're really not all saying the same thing. And there's a couple interesting facets in this. I think the idea that this is about locals is not really what it's supposed to be about. I think this is kind of obscuring what the actual thing is. So, for example, we had a private little chat. We were talking about stuff like this. Tafo is in there, and kind of talking about the idea of people skipping out on tournaments. I think I said as an example, because I think this all stemmed from Blur saying like not counting locals would mean people would go. And then I brought this point up, and I was like, if you didn't count locals, does Mango suddenly go to locals? And the answer is no. And in response to that, Tafo comes in and he says, well, he's got a kid, and it's probably 2-hour round trip to get an A local in SoCal, and
Which
he
is
could be
fine.
he could be using that time better. He could hang out with his kid. He could go to a kid's baseball game.
Tafo's right. I
There's
mean,
no
that's
problem
enough
with
for me.
that.
I don't,
But it's not about now you got to go to locals. It's about
because they
the
don't
fact that
count.
going to locals don't matter. Do you know what Axe's peak was 4th on the MPGR? Do you know what his record was with meds? He was 4-4. He didn't even rank with someone who was ranked outside the top 30. But sure, let's say that doing that means that he's suddenly not top 10 anymore, right? We have like very
Well, he
good
thought he was
examples
third, I guess, was the issue, right?
of
And
this.
so
Yeah,
he pointed to something maybe.
he's
in
probably
his-
better than Mango, yeah.
And someone said it, and then it was like, well, maybe that's why.
Which is not the case.
Yeah,
How
I just
the fact that Amsa even got brought up as an example is just hilarious to me. It's been like a long-standing like joke or like a topic among us. Like even when Amsa was actually struggling in Japan, it basically was just in like an alternate dimension. It was like he's gonna come here and just like destroy everyone.
Yeah, I mean it's the New Jersey of the rest of the world. So.
I heard New Jersey. Sorry, I was looking at something
Yeah,
else.
I mean,
New Jersey good? New Jersey bad? Which one?
New Jersey weird.
Yeah, that's right.
Which
That's
is true. Objectively.
That's absolutely correct. Anything could happen in the state. Yeah, I mean, so we went through and I think as collectively all looked at almost all the content about like why Melee is dying, if Melee is dying. First of all, glad everyone's making content. It's always good to have that sequence going. I have some obvious things that I wanted to say that I maybe didn't get to cover earlier about.
I guess let's talk about why this is a conversation, right?
Oh. Yeah, so that's...
So this starts because IBW makes a tweet a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago. And the tweet is basically, I have a lot of respect for people who stream a dead game. Or it was something along those lines. And this, obviously referring to Melee, got a lot of people talking. And then it was kind of, it's this type of thing where, Chrome, I'm going to let you go off on this because I know you've got you've got great thoughts. I want to just mention something recently, and this might seem like a tangent. Mitski is a very popular indie artist, and she recently said she doesn't want people videotaping her shows because it takes people out of the experience of going to a show. Now, what happened was that a few people were like, I kind of want to use my phone. And then what happened after that was everyone was like, I can't believe Mitski just said this one thing, and everyone attacked her. Let's back Mitski up, right? It's this idea of like,
let's get him.
The backlash being very tiny and the vocal minority, and then everyone is like, I can't believe everyone would say this. So I feel like this is the case, right? He says Melee's dying, and then everyone's like, Melee's dying. Who's saying Melee's like, right? It's like, well, no one did, right? It's one guy who said Melee's dying. But now we are getting a whole lot of content. You're right about why Melee's dying. So yeah, Jake, let's go through what you think on this, because it's definitely like a cottage industry now.
Oh, it absolutely is. And I mean, so I want to talk about the parts of this that I find valid or frustrating for players. So I guess to start, like Moki and Nun's videos. Moki had one, and Moki and Nun both said this is ridiculous. Top players are really stressing about this for no reason. But the big problem that Moki pointed out was, if Panda can't use online for rankings, and if we want to use online for rankings, that's a huge issue for our scene. And it was the only way I could meaningfully compete. And if it doesn't count, I feel really shitty. And like none of my work or, tenure as a player really mattered over those 2 years. And I wanted to just put a counterpoint out there, though I do really empathize with it. And I think he's got a great point. I think part of why we got such a big buy-in to Netplay is that there were frictions about Netplay. If you're a top player, you're going to play some people from another coast. You're going to play some 90, 100, 120 ping matches. A lot of these connections are not as great as you think. There are a lot of situations where top players will be playing each other, the connection will be kind of shitty, and instead of there being a DQ, which under, full rigorous senses there probably should be, they'll play it out. And part of that is that they understand that it doesn't count the same as LAN. And if people thought that this counted exactly the same as LAN, you would have, I think, a massive amount of dodging of certain tournaments. Like if HBox can somehow either hypnotize himself into holding W the entire time, or there's something wrong with his setup in a way, and that's a sponsored player, an electrical engineer, chemical engineer, smart guy, and there's still something wrong with this setup in some way where he is just getting blown out by every, top 50 Fox out there. I think every player gets very afraid in that situation. And I think they start dodging tournaments. Like I know players that didn't play because they were like, okay, I'm going to have to play this guy from the East Coast and they're going to teleport on me and I can't tech chase them. And maybe that was a giveaway. And so I think it's a little bit dangerous there, but I absolutely get what Moki's saying. I think we probably could have gone away with online rankings and then had a great online versus offline thing going on. I mean, we're not ultimate. It's not a completely fraudulent competitive experience. But it's not, and this is no fault to anybody. What Fizzy did was incredible. What that team did is incredible. But it's touchy. I mean, think about how many times players have said, "I don't know about UCF," or "I don't know about that TV." Imagine that same standard for Netplay, and I get a little bit worried. None, I feel terrible because if you look at how he did, he was a bona fide like top 5 player at various points during the LPR. Did great. It doesn't feel like he ever got the recognition for that. And he had just a huge amount of personal issues to deal with over the last 2 years. And I think it's a huge fight. And his point was, I really just don't know what matters anymore because it doesn't seem like there's an acceptance that it matters
in life.
exactly. And we're all a little bit,
Yeah.
it's a little bit like that.
Right.
Top players are pulling out of stuff a lot. But I also do think that there is a big thing that happened, which was Omicron came up and canceled a huge amount of tournaments again. We lost a massive amount of momentum as far as live events.
Yeah, I mean, so if I can just jump in really quick,
please do.
I think that this whole conversation kind of misses the mark a little bit for me, because I don't necessarily think anyone's wrong, right?
Mhm.
And I think that the reason that no one's really wrong is because everyone has a different idea about like what rankings are supposed to be. In particular, I wasn't really a big fan of this path to the PGR or whatever, because like what is a ranking supposed to be, right? And in particular, what is a ranking differentiated from seeding, right? So like if you have to seed every player, like imagine everyone goes to a tournament and you make a seeding list of every single player that goes. Your job is to rank the players in order of how good they are at the current moment. Which like, there's there's it's a different thing from like what traditional MPGR style rankings are, where the purpose of it is to give like a sort of report card for how a player did over the course of a particular year. Because if it was only the former, then events at the beginning of the year would not matter at all. Because the only thing that would matter is performance near the end. What's really weird about this whole situation is we now have a meaningful vector for determining player skill, which is not based on LAN tournaments. So people are getting frustrated about different things, right? Like Moki is absolutely right in the sense that he didn't want to get COVID. He didn't want to die. And he played Melee in the manner that was available for him. And he beat a bunch of really strong players and tried his ass off. And he was much, much higher skilled than people recognized him for being, right? And like a bunch of top players were like, Moki, they did you dirty. The panelists were really just out to get you, man. They were really out to get you. Which is like, sure. Like maybe you want to take that perspective, right? But the fundamental problem here is that rankings are not an ordered list of player skill. They're generally like historically a report card of events that occurred in person, like over the course of a long period of time. And we really shouldn't have been having those. Like that's where I start to get really frustrated about this whole conversation, right? Because like Moki's right to not go to events, right? It's totally like reasonable for him to not want to get COVID.
Yeah, Zane is
And
right,
in
Mango's right,
return,
everyone's
because
right
the
to do it.
ranking exists, he was punished for it. So I think that this is like people are talking past each other a little bit, right? Because it's not that we really care about whether online counts as much as LAN, or like people know that, right? Like if there was no COVID, then there would be no problem at all, right? We wouldn't be having this discussion. It would be trivial that the reason, or it'd be mostly trivial that
Yeah, well,
the
yeah.
yeah, like maybe there's some Netplay warrior that like doesn't go to anything, but
I
like
think if you live like 5 hours away from everybody and you can
yeah,
go to
there
like
might be
2
some like corner
majors.
cases or whatever, but like
Yeah.
generally speaking, it'd be a lot more acceptable to people if there were an abundance of LAN tournaments that were safe and easy to travel to. That those would be the ones that matter more than online. The problem is that there is like a virus that is harming people in the world. So like I really just didn't agree with the creation of this ranking because it was going to cause discussions like this, like an inevitability that it would cause discussions like this, and like no one's no one's in the wrong, right?
Yeah.
Like you know,
I was
it does
pretty
what a
heavily.
ranking is supposed to do, and that sucks.
Yeah.
No one
What's
wins.
interesting, Chroma mentioned this earlier, is that top players have a great way of complaining and then suddenly having all of their followers then think that these complaints are valid. And
So true, man.
I do like, we had an episode before, we had Moki and Blur on, and I was the only one who said that online should not be counted. Have I changed my opinion? Very, very slightly. Very, very slightly. I have the wheat idea, which is COVID is going to exist forever, for the next, for however long Melee is going to be alive, basically, right?
Yeah.
So the fact of having a major in January is probably not going to fly because everyone's going to be traveling. We're going to have another spike. It's just like we have to understand this. So I think if you want to have an LACS or a Gallant or something, if you want to have an event that is specifically counted as like a ranking online event and have every other online event not count, I think that's okay. But that's kind of besides the point. But a point that I made on that episode was that, like, is this what top players even want? Like it's kind of crazy because we've had a few people who say it. Moki, who's very right to be salty about being one of the best players in the world and not being recognized as that. But the sea change that we've seen from the public opinion of this is not like Melee, this shouldn't count, to how can you not count this? You are doing a disservice to the community by not counting this. It was like overnight. I swear that people were like saying this. And I was like, when did we switch to this? Yeah, I mean, I think, Ambi, you're right. Like, this is going to happen regardless, because when you make a ranking in a time like this, you're going to do something wrong, right? Like, each way is going to be wrong, and someone's going to be mad. And it just so happens the way that they did it kind of didn't really make anyone happy, while also making a lot of people somewhat mad. So it's kind of this unfortunate thing where we're hearing a lot from a lot of different people. But yeah, I mean, I guess to go back to that point that I just made, if you look at all of these videos, we have a video from Moki. Moki does a video, which is, I think, the only scripted video we saw, which is, hey, that's a plus to Moki. But he did a video on this whole is Melee dying thing. None did a video reacting to that video. Mango did a video where he talked for about 5 to 6 minutes about the video before he ever watched it, which is great. We'll get into that, I'm sure. And then we saw an Axe video, which was about this general thing. He didn't react to the video, but it was, this video was obviously made because of the Moki thing. They said 4 different things. Sometimes they overlapped. Sometimes none was like, yeah, I kind of wish online counted because he's also from Ontario and also is screwed over by COVID and the border. But Moki was saying different things than what None said. Axe was basically just talking about how he doesn't love competing anymore. He didn't say that, but if you
That
listen
was
to what he
really it.
said,
Dude,
he
there's
said
a
he said he's afraid to compete, which is
dude,
fine because
there's a quote.
Or it's stressful or not fun, which like I get
Yeah.
too.
There's something he says at the beginning of the video that I wrote down because it was I just like could not believe that Axe said this. Like it just goes so far to show how things change. He literally says the words like as someone who was he like I don't have the quote in front of me right now, but he was like as someone who was close to being a top player, what like
As
or
someone
That's
who was
used
close
nuts.
to
to
the
be.
top for a little while.
Yeah,
Oh,
just
like
oh
the
my
very
god,
top,
that's
I guess,
so
is the only way you
cursed.
could read it. Yeah.
Yeah.
He
No,
was
but I
there.
mean,
Come on.
all of these players, these 4 players, and of course this is 4 of however many, whatever you want to say top players are. But they're all saying different things. And the issue is that when this gets to discourse, people are like, well, top players are saying this. And it's like, well, you're not actually listening to what they're saying. Because what Cody's probably thinking about this is different than what Mango's saying. It's different than what None is saying. It's different than what Axe is saying. And it's kind of this like whole thing of like, we're getting all these people who are they're talking about themselves, right? But they're pitching it as if it's a problem about the Melee community. Axe is saying that it's not worth his time and stress to enter to tournament mode Tuesdays because he might make $200. It's not worth that because if he loses, the community will be up in arms and they'll go crazy. They'll pop off at the upset. That sounds like it's something that Axe feels personally and is pointing it as he's saying it as a problem for rankings or for the community in general or for why Melee is like this. So that's something that I think we need to like really say. I know that we all agree with this, but this is basically 4 disparate statements about the same thing that do overlap, but people when they talk about it and when the next PGR comes out, people will be like, well, online players, they want rankings. They want online rankings. Yeah, it's just kind of it's a little frustrating because I know that what they say will stand, even though they're not agreeing on the same thing. Jake, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really does come through. Yeah, I'm not gonna go too deep into like what Axe ended up saying.
Yeah,
I think for
which
him it really is
he's
like I
valid.
don't enjoy
Everything he said
competing
is
very
valid.
much.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of some really big things, it's hard to get that up and play at the level that I really feel like I need to play at to maintain what I want to maintain. IBDW lost to Salt this week. I don't think anyone really, I mean, people cared, but nobody was like, wow, IBDW's washed. It was like, wow, Salt's nuts. They can take some sets. I think people need to remember that like when you play 20 or 30 good people in a week, you're going to maybe lose to one of them and that's fine. I mean, it's funny. Mango's video, well, actually, you know what? I should go to the core points, I guess, a little bit before this. Um, one thing that IBDW I think started with are, if you stream Melee, you're not going to get viewership. And maybe this means Melee is dead. And, I got to take you back to all the times that this has been true, where, like, let's take Armada, best player possibly to have ever played the game in certain senses. When he just streamed Melee and grinded against CPUs, there were people watching because there was that mystic quality of just watching a master of their craft go at it. But then you're
That
like, well,
CPU Falcon, man, that
he saw things.
dirty things were done to
He
that
saw
CPU
things.
Falcon.
But Melee has never been a game where you can just pop it in and play it, and people are naturally interested. You need to work on your content. It's the reality, unfortunately, of the world that we live in. And that's as someone who loves Melee, even I was like, I don't know if I'm that interested in watching this. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say that we got to go like, Bobby Big Balls like having a date where he yells about Marth the whole time, or like other Falco saying we should invade Ukraine. We don't have to go there, but you really have to spice it up. And I feel like a lot of these tournaments are great opportunities to spice it up. Axe going secondaries on online tournaments, I think, was a lot of fun. People like to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Just if Mango went Mario, or if a mysterious Mario player started doing really, really well in Netplay tournaments, I'm amazed that he didn't smoof into these at some point as Scorp, or like not as Scorp.
Yeah.
But you really have to liven it up, and that's always been true of Melee. Every single year.
I think I remember Slime. I always talk about this because it's like one of the most profound media takes I've ever heard. Slime said this thing a while back about how back when like BR games were really big, like the Fortnite boom or whatever. The reason those games are so much fun to watch for streamers or for people that like consume stream content is because like all the games have like a little narrative to them, right? It's like it's like a little self-contained story where like you fall from the sky and you're scrounging for resources and you don't know if like they're gonna win or whatever. and it's really like the narrative that like keeps the viewer there and keeps the viewer watching. And most games have some sort of ranked mode where like there's like actual stakes, even if they're really small, just so that there's like a consistent narrative thread when you're watching. And I think that that's almost entirely absent for almost every Melee streamer, where they're playing and they're playing another good player or a CPU, and they're just doing the same thing the whole time, right? And if you're like another really really good player, maybe you'll watch and like absorb some situations or whatever. Um, but there's no reason for you to be watching. Um, but there are exceptions to this, right? Like we talked about Bobby, but like we don't even need it to go for Bobby. We could even just look at like Hungry Box, right? Where like you watch him play literally anyone, and maybe you need to turn your speakers down at the end of the set. You know what I mean? Like he'll be
'Cause
playing
it's
like
coming.
Otez, and
Yeah.
like
yeah, that was the
just
first person I thought of.
yeah, and like
Okay.
you'll just be like, okay, well surely he won't pop up on Otez. He has to make it further in the tournament before he starts like going like full yelling mode.
Wait, he's
It's like,
down
no.
3 stocks to 1 to Otez.
Yeah, and like you know what I mean? Like there's a reason for you to be watching it. Because there's a narrative thread to it. And that's something that needs to be like deliberately constructed. Or externally existing for some reason. So I think that's a fun way to think about it.
You
I
can
think
get
it's
it
stakes for sure.
sometimes. You can get it sometimes just by itself, but I mean, I'm thinking back to like the heyday of just like Mango mostly streaming Melee, and I was thinking like Scar came over one time and Dunk kind of talked some shit, and it wasn't manufactured; it was just Falcon Brain, and they would like play best of fives, and all of a sudden Dunk is winning. What's going on? Or like like they would have these things, or maybe they just get way too drunk and someone would fight someone, which is kind of a different vibe. But just the stakes that arose in this, like the Zane Moki Fridays,
Yeah.
they're slightly amorphous, but like every single time, it matters. Wait, why did Zane get banned off of Twitch for something that he put on a stream? Or like, why is Moki's tag this? Or why did this person tweet that? Why is he moking? Why is he doking? I think that's always been true for Melee. And that's kind of a different thing for like Melee being dead. Melee is not the hottest spectator game unless you're really working on your craft. And then, to go to Mango's video, Mango basically took like the most villainous stance that I've seen him take since he started shit talking Wizrobe the one time the Wizrobe won, which was essentially, I'm gonna sub goal no matter what.
This
I
was
know
also,
I have.
I will let you go.
Yes.
This was before he watched the video. He heard the video had an anti-sub goal point, and he literally.
Well, we haven't talked about because it's not that relevant to the
Because it's really in there for 2
It's
seconds.
actually
Yeah,
it's something that Moki says for maybe 1 or 2 sentences in a script, which I think his point is great, but it's also not the reason why Melee's died. Right? It's like this little aside, and also that's him saying that. I think I put it in Discord or something, but I saw him say that he was anti-sub goal because he's getting paid by a team and he shouldn't be asking people who make less than him to pay him in order to give them entertainment. I saw that and I was like, oh man, Moki's gonna quit in 2023 and start reading Marx. It's like, yeah, it's a very cogent point, but unfortunately that's a point that leads you to stop playing Melee. But yeah, Jake, you're right. Mango releases like a 20-minute video. 6 minutes of the video are before Mango even watches it. And he just like heard through the grapevine it's anti-subgoaling, and he's already defending his use of subgoaling.
He's defending that he should be able to like say like a 2,000 sub goal to like go to an event, and it's openly just like getting his viewers to bribe him to do the thing that he's somewhat sponsored to do. And there's that sense of like, if I can get away with it, if the market allows it, then the market is fair and efficient, and this is good.
Let the free market decide.
Which I thought was a hilarious villain point from Mango. Like, and even just like the I don't have to enter shit. It's Zane's fault. You go do it. I'm the big dog.
Yes.
And then, like Mango has a kid. Like he can go like take his kid to like a baseball game. That's a thing that he can do. I feel like he's earned the right to sit on the mountain and terrorize the rest of us like this. I mean, it's funny watching HBox say like you need to be a man of the people and play. I love watching that dynamic go forward. That's not what I fault Mango for. The wild thing that I think we saw was Mango fans being like, yeah, no, it's totally fair and good to sub goal tournaments.
Well, you gotta
Capitalism isn't moral, man. Late stage, whatever, no ethical consumption, which I think a lot of people are taking as like justification to never try.
Yeah.
Just
It's
give
also-
up right now.
It's also an awfully uncritical stance, right? Like
Yeah.
he can sub like yeah,
He
I guess
can do it.
yeah, he can do it. It doesn't mean the
You're
rest of us
letting
has to
him
be
do
like
it.
well, yeah, it
Sure,
doesn't mean the
he's
rest of us have to
allowed.
be like, oh, like this is totally great, cool. Some of us could be like, yeah, you know what, I actually don't think I'm gonna sub. That's
Yeah,
kind of
I think the
lame,
whole thing
right?
is just
Like,
very silly, right? Because
Yeah.
like maybe you have
It
some like
rules.
fundamental weirdness about the idea of a sub goal, but it's like Mango wants to do it, and Mango's fans want to give him money
It's
Yeah.
a
in order to receive
Yeah.
entertainment.
it's
He
a
had a
fin
very
dom.
not threatening
It's a
him.
fin dom situation, and I think we should respect that and let that keep going. Like
well,
sub goals are very different from like
Jake, he had a point just like that. He was like, "It's someone else's money, and I never get on someone's cases for how they spend their own money." And I'm like, "Well, you're kind of begging for money." It's like, yeah, I don't think you would be getting on someone's
I think
case.
begging is a bad word. I think bribery, accepting bribes.
It's a bit of extortion, right?
Right. Like it's very different from like someone who's like got 200 subs and like they're, travel's hard, everything's hard, and they're worried about everything. And it's like, yeah, I could really use the support. Or even Armada being like, look, I think I'd love to go to Evo. I think it'd be great. But I really just need help with the flight.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you need to fly my brother out too. Because he understood that he had the power in that situation to ask for it. And I can't ever fault someone for asking for it, but I can judge it a little bit, right? Like it's like,
Yeah, you're open to criticism, right? It's
but
Mango's allowed to do this, but
yeah,
he's also allowed to be criticized, which
but it's
is
also
Yeah,
kind of what's
exactly. That
going
was the
on.
it's
point I
also
was
kind
trying
of
to
a bit just to cover a little bit. Where like Mango's like always doing this will they or won't they sort of a situation. Like Mango's in jail before
Yeah.
the event. He can't make it. He might get drunk and not play. It's constant. Will he or won't he? Will he play well? Will he not play well?
And
Which I
that's a
think is
narrative. That's
it's a
him. That's
narrative.
him making the
Yeah,
threat that we were
which
talking about earlier.
which is why he's a successful streamer for that and a lot of other reasons. But it's really funny because I think if and Toph had this great point, which was that if Armada were doing this, Mango would be
Yeah,
furious.
I was literally about to bring that up. Can you imagine, like when Armada was talking, like the thing, like one of the things that Toph said is that like he understood Mango's perspective a bit, but thought that Mango's stance and the way that he talked about subgoaling was particularly weird because Mango like. Part of why he got so upset at Armada wasn't just like, oh, well, so I can beat you, but because he genuinely thought it was like bad for the game and like lame that Armada was leaving. So it is funny to see like after so long that like for Mango now that he's atop like the throne or whatever, and now it's suddenly like no, you have to convince me, right? Like it's a
Every
weird like
single
standard that he never
yeah.
set for if it were Armada doing it.
Every single video we saw was some level of self-interest, right? Moki was making points about the bigger thing and being like, yeah, I should be doing this. But it was, still some level of self-interest, and he was like, well, I should be ranked. Mango's obviously on the other end of the spectrum, which is it's all self-interest. It's like I should be able to ask for money to go to like a tournament that's right near my
Well,
house. I should be able to.
what was the example that he had, which was
So
so
he had an
beautiful that he thought was
example.
going to be the other way? Yeah.
So he was talking about it's a hustle, right? And I want to talk about Twitch at large because I think Twitch is really interesting and just like entertainment. But he mentioned Twitch as a hustle, and he compared himself to a few different things. He was like, "Is this that different than a titty streamer?" Is his as the parlance of the times, not my words, but his. He compared himself to that. But the one that really got my attention is he said, "We work on tips," which I was like, you know what? You do work on tips. This is a very good point, right? It's like you have to cater to the people who pay you because otherwise you're not getting money. And he said it's as if you're a waiter and someone offered you $10 to take your shirt off. He's like, of course you do that. Of course you take your shirt off. Yeah, like it's $10. And I'm like, that's not where I thought. I thought it was like there's a line in the sand
He
that
rules, man.
even with it. No, he said that everyone's got a price.
I think
and said a little more on that than I'm willing to say here.
two quick things, and I'm sorry for monopolizing, but one thing, first of all, I think it's also a genius form of engagement. Those 500 people that got the sub goal feel that they're the reason Mango won the event, that they feel engaged, and I think that's a beautiful thing. And the second thing is, I think top players are a little bit more forward thinking than maybe we give them credit for, and by we I mean
Sure.
me. But it's like this natural thing, and this is any data-driven organization. You've probably seen some sort of blind spot like this, where you have a stream. You're a Smash player, you're a top 10 Smash player. You have a stream. You stream a certain amount of numbers, subs are here, and there's a correlation, right? You take 4 days off to go to an event. and you play that event and you do well and you have a lot of fans and notoriety and you do well, but your sub number went down. And you're like, oh shit, I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't go to the event. And my brother in Christ, that is where where the subs come from.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? It's like but if Mango never did another thing for the scene or never went to another tournament, I feel like he's put Melee on his back for enough seasons that he does kind of get a pass. And I think he does understand that, right? I don't think there is a myopia to that extent, right?
It probably comes down to people not wanting to shoulder the blame, but there's not really a blame to be had necessarily, right? It's a
Nah.
problem, but everyone's like, well, here's why it's not my fault. Now that I've said that, let's make it their fault.
Yeah.
So Twitch, and we're all we're all left leaning here in some sense.
I'm right wing.
So
Right wing F.
No, not doing this bit.
Love
yeah.
capitalism, baby.
Great. This bit that has not yet transferred over to this podcast. This podcast that gets way more views than our little Discord. Great. I'm glad this bit is over there. Hey, if you want to use the emote right wing AF, you can join our Discord.
Sounds like commie talk to me. I don't know.
But we're all we have our own political stances, I guess. Twitch is a really interesting entertainment model because if you compare it to normal entertainment, right? It's like you pay a cable provider, they give you shows, and then shows are able to pay their people because they get paid from ads, and there's all this stuff, right? It's not like you are the reason SNL is live, right? You don't have to pay. They're not going to be like, we need $500 to run Weekend Update tonight, right? You as a viewer, you have that thing of like, if you're watching a show, maybe it's got a really small number of views, and you're like, I don't want it to be canceled. But no one does that anymore. People don't track how many people watch a show live. It doesn't matter. But Twitch is something completely different. Twitch is like, while watching it, that you are the one who's paying that person. They might get a salary from a team if they get paid, but if they're on an organization, but their income mostly comes from Twitch. So when you're watching it, there's this weird thing of being like, I better give this person $5 because I just like want them to not go broke. I remember explaining Twitch subs to someone who I used to work with, an old coworker who was like into League of Legends. And they didn't know what you got from it, and I was like, they still stream. It's like that they don't stop streaming and get a new job, and what we're kind of running into here is that you can talk about 2014 Melee, or you can talk about 2015, 2016, whatever year you pick as the year where everything was good and right, is a year where people, for the most part, weren't on Twitch streaming. Twitch has now become this thing where if you want to be a Melee player, I mean, if you want to be a lot of things, but specifically we're talking about Melee. If you want to be a top Melee player, you better stream, because that's supposed to be your job, right? We kind of push people away from having Melee as like a side gig, and because of that, we're in this awkward predicament where, as Chroma mentioned, there's tournaments that are happening, and people are like, it's a net negative for me to go to this because I lose money because I'm not streaming. But what do you think happens? We have the third best Melee player in the world, and he's wondering why the game's dying. Kind of think this one's, I'm not blaming Cody for what's happening in the game. Also, I don't think Melee's dying, but it's like, if one of the top 3 players says Melee is dying, kind of reflects on some of the top Melee players, right? If he's one of the biggest Melee streamers, then maybe this is something that would fall onto him. Everyone wants to grow their stream, and everyone's saying you can't have a Melee stream, so everyone wants to do variety streaming. And then what happens? They look back and they're like, why is no one streaming Melee? So I don't know. I'm not blaming Cody here, but I do think it's an interesting thing to tweet that the game that you are leading the pack in is dying, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm not hurting anyone's feelings by saying that that Cody kind of just fires at the hip a lot of the time. I think kind of a Fox player thing, you know what I mean? Just where you have a thought and the world must know.
I've done it.
And yeah, like we've all done it. But I don't want to like rag on Cody too much because
He's a great guy.
It was literally just like, no one's watching my streams. That's frustrating. The game's dying, right? And then it spiraled out to this whole discourse that like 4 people made videos on. And it's like, okay, well, I was just mad because no one watched my stream on a Tuesday. So I mean, yeah, I hesitate to say that like, oh, it's Cody's fault that like the viewership is bad or whatever. Like I don't know. He had a bad day viewership wise. He was
It was
frustrated.
unfortunate timing. I mean, if we're going to be honest about it, what really happened is that we are still dealing with the effects of global pandemic. And they took this time to be like, why is Melee not like why is
It
Melee
really
not
is
popping
amazing.
off right now?
Yeah,
I
it's
wonder
amazing when you
if
think
there
about
could
how
be
good
something.
Netplay must have been this whole time for us to like suddenly be wondering why our game is not succeeding as if there were no global pandemic.
But we're so close to Smash Camp and Genesis and Pound and Function and Low Tier City or Low Tide City. It's like, are we that myopic where it's like,
Yes.
we're just like looking at the very end of this like thing. It's like, it's been 4 months. What's going to happen? Look at the next few weeks. I think one of the funniest things about this was that Cody made this tweet, which, lit a fire under people to talk about this. And the way that discourse works is that, like, the first part of discourse, it doesn't all like come in one day, right? It's in drips and drabs because people are like talking about it, make videos about it. And in the time that Cody made this thing, Smash World Tour announces like every tournament in the world. It's so like people are like on their, they're making videos for YouTube and they're like, let's talk about why Melee's dying. And then they like the next video they have on their stream is like Smash World Tour announced. It's like,
Yeah, I mean, even
like
in Toad's
hogging.
video, where he recaps it, he's like, yeah, so like, I don't really know if this is a point anymore because Smash World Tour got announced. It's a pretty large prize pool, but it definitely raises some interesting questions. So yeah, it's funny. Unfortunately, timing from Cody.
I think to wrap up is Melee dying. My point on it is it's a very specific time to feel like Melee's dying, but when you actually scale back, you can see that it's not dying. So we have good stuff ahead of us. I think that this was maybe not the best point to make, but I think what came out of it was that people are like a little more willing to look at what they do with a more critical eye. And because of that, I mean, to training mode, did they call themselves training mode Tuesdays again? It used to be training mode tournaments. I don't even know what's what. But TMT today, Plups entering West Coast. It's like Cody, Moki, IBW entering East Coast.
Plups sitting in Grands right now.
There's a ton of people. And it's like, I think what happened was that everyone was like, Melee's not really dying, but they were able to voice their opinions and they're able to see what people were saying and see if it applied to themselves. And obviously this isn't going to last forever, but I hope that what people understand and what people, none understands it, people do understand this, is that there are cycles to this, and adding a pandemic, which will probably have a virus that continues to rear its head, will only exacerbate this idea of off seasons. I don't know. When there were no off seasons, people were complaining that there needs to be an off season. And now that there's a big gap, people are complaining that Melee's dying. It's a fun thing to talk about and to laugh about, but it's at the end of the day, it's not really dying. And one of the things that was very helpful to feeling like it's not dying is the Smash World Tour announcement. So obviously we saw Smash World Tour 2021 last year, something that yours truly had a little bit of a hand in. But Smash World Tour 2022 is going to be kind of the original style of circuit that they tried to do in 2020 before for a little coronavirus happened. It's gonna be I'm pretty excited about it. I don't know if you guys are. It's got some stuff to it that I think is like ripe for discussion, but the TLDR of it is we're gonna have I believe like 22 gold and platinum events for Melee spread across some stuff's unannounced, so it's like right now I think we're at 10 countries in a few different continents. So we are definitely going to see some interesting Melee. This is kind of expanding upon the idea that Smash World Tour last year did. But yeah, let's get into this because I think that there were some interesting things about this. Ambi, I know that you are someone who you have been to a Smash World Tour event.
I have. Thank
You're
you to
one.
yours truly. I have been there.
You're able to sneak into one of the events, so don't forget that. I think you might have had some Wingstop or whatever. So whatever your opinion is, it has to be filtered through that. No, but what
Well,
do you think about
I said it on
2022?
Twitter. I said it on Twitter, and I'll say it here. I'm excited. It's a circuit, and it looks like there are tournaments in it. Um, that's more than I've come to expect from tournaments
And you know what?
in the
They made an
circuit form.
announcement that they were going to tell everything in a week, which is a lot more than 3.5
Yeah,
months.
like that was quite fast. You asked me like 2 years ago, like, oh, an announcement of an announcement. Oh boy. But you know what? They really came through, and they said that tournaments would occur on specific dates, and I believed them. Whether or not that's like a comprehensive thing, or if it's like an actual centralization, or if there's like maybe some back behind the scenes politics of which events get selected and which don't, that's up to debate. But personally, I'm just happy to see that there are events in it. So that's my stance. Good job.
Edwin, what are your thoughts?
I am excited for any opportunity we get to see people like Chape and Ingen playing meaningful sets and showing what new stuff they have. So whatever issues like you could have with the existence of multiple circuits, neither which have the biggest events of the year, and I have a lot of issues with that. If you want to read all about them, you can read my Monday Morning Marth from earlier this week. But at the end of the day, I always kind of bring back to when it comes to Smash World Tour itself, giving more international players opportunities to compete against like not just a bigger talent pool of players, but to compete against each other in like high stakes sets that matter for like as part of like a bigger circuit or something. That's always something that I think is genuinely good, and we should have more things like that in the scene.
We're all hand holding right now, and it's a nice little moment. Um, and before we go to Chroma, where this chain of good feelings might break, let's kind of set the table for a bit, because Edwin, you mentioned the biggest tournaments. Let's talk about what is in Smash Bros. Tour and what isn't, because for Ultimate they got a lot of the big hitters and they've got a lot of big stuff, but for Melee there is reason to have a little pause. So we have tournaments that are a part of Smash World Tour. So we've got Super Smash Con, obviously we've got Pound, Gommel, we already have some Canadian representation. Double Down, which we don't really know much about that, but I went to Royal Flush and enjoyed it a lot. We've got FET in the UK, or sorry, Fate in the UK, Battle of BC. We've got Smash Factor, so we've got some Mexican representation. We've got Australia for BAM, and of course we have the one the with the what's it is it
Oh my
what's the
god.
thing you like keep cutting off its head and it just comes back?
Hydra.
Hydra. Okay. We've got the Hydra that is Apex. Very cool list of tournaments, but let's take a look at the ones that are not in Smash World Tour. So this is Genesis, Big House, Summit, obviously, Main Stage, Shine, Riptide, CEO, Low Tide City, and any DreamHack event. We have DreamHack events on the way in 2022, but it's not as big as it was in years prior. But still important enough to say big events that we've had for Smash. So all of these are not counting. And if we look at I made a little graph. Let's see if it's able to show it on stream. What I did is I took the tournament numbers, the entrance numbers for Melee singles from all of the events, their last iteration. And I was kind enough to do the real SmashCon from 2019 and not SmashCon Fall Fest. So yeah, being a little generous. But you can see from this graph that the two biggest tournaments of 2019 or 2020 for Genesis pretty much outweigh a lot of the other stuff, and it's not counted. SmashCon had a great showing in 2019 for Melee, and Fall Fest not having a great showing. We don't know what's coming up. And then the other things, you go on, you have Riptide, Shine, Main Stage, all of these huge tournaments. The only one that had over 500 entrants that is a part of Smash World Tour was SmashCon. So it does bring up this question of like, you know, is this what we need, right? We are seeing some centralization, but we're seeing it from, you know, if you ever have an entity within Smash, you're gonna come up with situations like this because, you know, there are backroom deals, like Ambi said. We don't know. We don't know if it's Genesis who's like, what do we gain from this? We don't know if it's Smash World Tour who's like, well, you have to do this to be a part. We don't really know what's happening. Um, but the product that we're coming out with, or the product that comes out that we're left with, um, a little confusing. So Edwin, I know you said that you have a column about it. I don't know if you want to go into more, or if we just let the wild dog off the leash. I don't know what you're thinking, Edwin.
Let's let him rip.
All right, Chroma, what do you think?
I've been hurt before, man. I've been hurt before too many times. I've seen this fall crashing to the realities of the world. I mean, last year, I mean, everyone did what they could during COVID, we included, but there were a lot of logistical snafus, there were a lot of miscommunications, a lot of feelings hurt, a lot of expectations not achieved. And, I hope that they've learned from that. I hope that we see a little bit more tightness, or, it's possible that in the shit cases, Nintendo comes down and destroys us. Events don't happen for some mysterious reason. Or that we just have like a series of warring circuits between people that will allow their tournaments to be streamed one way or another way, or pay a specific thing that we don't know about. I mean, that all the other events either, get bullied into it in some sort of, fracturing of the scene because somebody wants to run something one way and make everyone go along by force. That said, I mean, this could turn out good. I don't know. I think circuits are neat.
Do you want maybe my slightly cynical version of that take?
Yeah, go ahead.
There's a few different ways to look at it, but I really want to hear this one.
Yeah, so I don't think that it will do anything different. Like, I think that if you think about circuits, like what a circuit is for, right? It's supposed to be like this unifying thing where like you have performance over time in a particular circuit, and then like there are people that perform well and like they're rewarded somehow in an invitational tournament or in rankings or whatever, right? So you are going to have the biggest events, and them not being in the circuit is going to do literally nothing. It's not like, Double Down is going to be the new Genesis because it's part of Smash World Tour. Like people are going to go to Genesis. It's going to be the most important tournament. People are going to go to the Smash World Tour tournaments because they're community events, and people are going to go to them anyways. It's not like people are not going to go to the ones that aren't Smash World Tour events just because they're not Smash World Tour events. Like, people are still going to go to main stage. Summit is still going to be like absurdly overwatched.
I worry though. Just to ask you a question in there. I think we agree that no one is saying like, I'm not going to Genesis because I won't get my 20 Smash World Tour opponents for getting 47,
right.
49. But the issue that I think about is kind of like the marginal case, like a big regional burgeoning major that's either on the circuit or off the circuit, and maybe they agree to, and we're all thinking it, like they work with a specific group of people perhaps, and perhaps this possibly disqualifies them from inclusion in the circuit in the same way. And that this starts
nothing. I think this does
that
nothing.
it's like a big marginal thing that like draws one group versus another group because
because the thing is, at the end of the day, the people that care about the circuit are the people that are going to be eligible to win it.
That's true.
Like you and I, cracked Fox players, as maybe
Nuts.
we may be.
Evo circuit point winner, by the way, in 2013.
They
took that away because 12 people entered the tournament.
We're not gonna go to pick a regional over another regional because of the tour, right? Like, maybe Magi will, but like, the rest of us that comprise the majority of tournament entrants, we're not gonna care. This is like, it's a purse for people that are very, very good at the game. Tracking them attending specific, Smash World Tour affiliated events over time, and then maybe being like a championship tournament at the end, right? Like, unless there's some sort of weird clause where like players that enter Smash World Tour events are not allowed to enter other tournaments.
That'd be wild.
You know what I mean? But that'd be insane. There's no way they would do that.
I'm conspiracy theory guy. I don't think we're there.
So
I think there is one player that people will follow that if that person goes, it legitimizes the event. And I mean, you can win a big event, but it doesn't really matter if that person is there. It isn't. And that person is Polish.
Of course.
If Polish is not at the event, if they're not at the event, it's a Mickey Mouse tournament.
It's truly.
Summit
truly
was a
is.
Mickey Mouse major. Riptide Mickey Mouse major. Low Tide City Mickey Mouse major.
Only
Yeah,
person
it
who won a real
definitely-
major was Fluff.
Without
And-
them, it's break.
And do you,
With
and do
them,
you
it's
know which tournament they went to?
Smash World Tour.
SmashCon
Smash
Fall
World
Fest.
Tour. So I'm seeing it. It's the beginning of the end.
Edwin.
Smash Cup Fall
Not-
Fest.
not
is-
even-
Yeah, I
The
guessed
exact
wrong.
day.
I said,
yeah,
we both,
I
we
get
both
the
have
Smash.
Smash. And then, look, they did go to SmashCon Fall Fest. That
No,
is-
they did, they
I
did
just,
that.
did it.
So
Which
I-
made
I
it the
just
the
guessed
most
wrong
important
in
tournament
this
because they won it.
specific case.
Yeah, all
So
I'm saying
I-
is you gotta watch out for Gimmer and the team, and I don't think there's anything more I could say that can get me more not commentating this circuit than I already am.
Well, I
So-
wanna
Do you
mention
think that
something-
do you think that there'll be controller grips listed for players again?
I hope so. Goomwave was an
Non-standard.
abomination, and they're being punished by God for their hubris. Sorry, MB, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But it's
Gotta do
so
this
funny
again.
that controller can accidentally turn your code to a different setting because you hit an arcade set of buttons that you didn't know. That rules, and that's great, and that's nobody's fault, and that's how the tournament. There should be 5 setups on the Goomwave that mess up the controller as soon as you hit the wrong 4 buttons. That's a balancer.
It should we be like more vocal about whose Goomwave fries what? Because I'll start it right now. The last Smash World Tour, Keizu's Goomwave was frying nonstop setups in the VIP
It's
section.
insane. It's insane the nonsense that has happened with these controllers.
I want to bring it back to Smash World Tour, and I
Yeah,
want to
yeah,
say
sorry,
one
sorry,
thing,
sorry.
and maybe this is, I will say what was said, and if you want to believe it, feel free. I don't blame anyone for not believing this, but Gimmer did an AMA on our Smash Bros, and he did say that streaming on VGBC is not a requirement, and he says that that the BTS issue that wasn't a streaming issue, he didn't say issue. He just said it wasn't because of streaming. So if you want to believe that something can be streamed on BTS and still be part of Smash World Tour, I think it's possible. Also, if you want to be a little more cynical and not believe it until you see it, then I think that you have the right to do that as well. But Ambi, I think you actually you had said you had a cynical point. I think you actually had a pretty good point, because if nothing changes, that's not the worst scenario, right?
That's
What
a
the
huge
worst
win.
scenario is, Ambi, which I don't think that you mention. So you say that this only affects people who are really good. What if I told you that we have a lot of really good players who don't make a lot of money
Oh
and they're
no.
only able to go to so many tournaments? I don't want to say anyone is I'm not calling out people for not having money, but I will say that someone like Ben is really good and is in college and does not have a ton of time to be making the big bucks to go to whatever tournament he wants to. Does not have
Oh,
a lot
no,
of time to go to whatever tournament he wants to. So there might be a situation where if he has the opportunity to go to 4 tournaments in a year, right? 4 majors, which is basically in the full year, normally what we see with an MPGR candidate, the average is usually 4 or 5 majors. Might be smart to pick Pound, Double Down, SmashCon, and throw a Battle of BC or whatever. It might be smart to pick those because they're ranking events for the Smash World Tour. If you are someone who is good enough to place high enough to get enough points, it might just make sense. And I think that the worst case scenario is a fracture on that level. You're right. Genesis is not going to really be affected by this. But what if I told you the Big House, which is currently scheduled the same weekend as First Attack in Puerto Rico, which
Yeah.
is a platinum event.
That's a lot of points, and it's
Now,
not a big scene.
traditionally not known as a melee region. This is
I'm gonna fight
more of an
Kata
ultimate thing.
if I'm a Sheik, and I'm
But,
gonna win so
yeah.
many points.
I mean,
Are you
okay,
willing to
so
go and play
I
Kata
don't
and
think
Panda or whatever,
people
whoever
will.
travels
I don't
down?
think people will skip on a Big House. I don't think so, and I'm going to tell you why. Because people still care about the PGR. That is the most important. That is the unifying factor of all of this. Is that people care about how you perform at the most important tournaments. This has been what we talked about the whole episode. Is that people want to only care about doing well at the big tournament and not having to worry about these like Mickey Mouse locals where they want to go Mario. You know what I mean? I think that you can
They
argue
also
this
don't
for
trust
specific
us, though,
regions.
They don't
right?
trust us at all.
So they might not trust us weighing 49th at the big house over
No, you're
second
nuts,
at
dude.
first attack.
They won't be able
Sukata.
to complain if they don't go to big house, which is it's the crux of their argument,
I'll always
right?
find a way to
They'll
complain,
always
Eric.
complain.
You've been in the
Hey,
scene for long enough.
come on, man.
Yeah,
No, but
show
I think that the number of people that can conceivably go to exclusively Smash World Tour tournaments for the potential monetary gain, it's a non-zero amount of players. I also don't think it's all of the players,
Yeah.
and I think that this is like an important point where there'll be ebbs and flows, and people will be attracted to tournaments with competition regardless.
Maybe.
Yeah, I
There's
mean, we'll see.
Actually,
And there's
that
a funny
kinda-
point that I wanted to
yeah.
bring up, which is Apex, which is a notable spot.
Right,
I
yeah.
can't believe that
on this,
brand
I
isn't
can't
dead.
believe they're
list,
bringing
right?
that back. That is
So if you
ridiculous.
Just name
remember,
it something else, man.
we are reviving this tournament because of how successful Apex 2016 was.
Oh Christ.
Um,
Which had a bunch of players who we're not going to even talk about.
Yeah, but this is like a great example of like. So imagine that Apex 2016 had circuit points attached to it. It wasn't even over like the big house. It was just an event that people didn't really feel like going to. And like some people went to it. It was fine. That's I don't think that it's not magically going to be bigger than the big house. I think
No.
that the idea that the big house is going to be substantially damaged by
That's not really the point, though, is it?
That's our
It-
best
it-
case scenario. Like
So-
like Big House versus the Puerto Rico tournament.
yeah.
You know, that's the best you can get for not being on the circuit is I guess my point. Long story major with like 10 iterations versus Puerto Rico tournament, which I
Yeah.
am really excited to see that scene get a big event, by the way. I think that's great.
Chroma,
Yeah, no, that's great.
I think
Go ahead.
that's actually the best way to look at this, right? Is that
Mhm.
it's very, it's reasonable to see like 5 out of the 6 biggest majors that we have. It's reasonable to see them not be a part of this and wonder, well, like, what's the reason to care about this? But it's possible that an optimistic view of this is that the majors that will survive nonetheless, right, are the ones that aren't a part of this. And the ones that maybe need a little bit of bolstering, right? I'm not saying Apex should suddenly exist, but you have smaller events that otherwise would not get huge numbers, right? Battle BC does always kind of well. I wouldn't be shocked if instead of 250 entrants, it gets 400, right? Ultra hard, like there's tournaments and regions that we don't even like really hear from, and these are tournaments that will definitely have a boost in attendance. So I think there's an optimistic view, which the ones that are not part of it will be fine because people will still go to main stage because they like BTS. People will still go to Shine because they've done Shine so well for so many years. People will still go to the Big House because it's an institution, and the Genesis is the biggest tournament of the year, so people are going to go. So maybe there's a view of that, but I am a little worried because what we're looking at is it's a little too early, and the circumstances aren't perfect to say that the death of the regional is upon us. But we are seeing a lot of tournaments that don't have top players until they do have a top player, and then they all attend. It's kind of this whole thing of like the era of having 1 or 2 top players at something is not really sticking with us into the post-COVID world, right? Like, look at SmashCon Fall Fest. It had like everyone, and then one person dropped, and then suddenly more people dropped, and then it became something that no one basically, Polish, of course, but like it became like a shell of what we expected to be before.
Well, that was partially because of COVID, though. I think that one may be particularly.
I think part of it is COVID, but you're also Low Tide City is something that has existed for years. This is like the 8th iteration of it. It has, last time I checked was a week ago, it had 44 entrants for Melee. Like I know your point is that like people, they would still go to stuff. I am not seeing concrete evidence that people are going to go to stuff that everyone is not already going to, right? We know the whole thing about Mango says if Zane goes, he'll go, and then Zane wants to go. If so everyone wants to go because they have to prove something against everyone else. But if like someone's not going, you're not going to get Plup, and then like the next best player is Mech or Zuppy, right? We don't have tournaments like that anymore. Whether or not we will still have it, we have a lot of year to go, and now's not the time to say this because we're just coming off of Omicron, but it's just like that. It worries me in a way.
Maybe points is what we need just to get people to go. I mean, it's as simple as if no one's going to this event, I'm going to pick up some free points. And maybe this all is a benefit. A lot of these tournaments are in places where, we don't see tournaments that often. Maybe it doesn't cannibalize. Maybe we have a beautiful system and Melee grows and everything I said is going to sound stupid in 6 months, which I'm excited for.
Yeah, I mean, I may I do think that a lot of this has to do with the I forget what it's called, the effect where the first thing that comes to mind feels like a representative example, even if it may not be.
Mhm.
I feel like with regards to the circuit, yeah, it's fine. With regards to the circuit, I'd have to look at the format of how points are accrued. But
So
in my head, the way
yeah.
that these always go, just to make a super quick point, um, the way that these things usually go is that like really really good players that show up to these events, who they're probably going to go anyways because they're like the favorites for picking up like the $3,000 check or whatever for winning the event, they're gonna round out like the first like n number of spots where n is like less than all of the spots, and then like the players that are on the bubble after a couple of events are the ones that are grinding the circuit points in hopes of making like a big paycheck, right? um so it's less so that like every possible player that could be motivated by monetary gain is going to be attending every single Smash World Tour event and not anything else. I am reminded of like the last Smash World Tour where like it was told that like they're going to select 16 people from the East Coast, and like every mid-level player from the East Coast was like, it's going to be me, I'm going to grind all the tournaments, right? And then
Jay Flex was
everyone
like,
grinded.
why did I not get decide? Like, why didn't I get picked?
Yeah, I bet
People were
like
very mad
I'll
for
flex
being
you.
like the
know,
20th.
I don't want to like
I'm
name
not making
any
fun of
people,
flex on
right?
that.
But like a lot of people were super motivated, and then they didn't do that well at a couple of events, and then they were like, okay, I'm probably not going to make it. I'll just attend my normal events from now on. And that's sort of what I'm expecting will happen. Where like unless there's some weird thing where you can accrue a lot of points really quickly near the end of the circuit or something, I think that the first couple spots are going
First
to be taken
attack.
up. Yeah, the first couple spots are probably going to be taken up by super good players that were going to go to the tournaments anyways and accrue a lot of points, like your Plups of the world.
Sure.
And then players like Ben, like you mentioned, or whatever, or Mech, or that like tier of player that could like conceivably squeeze in at the end. They maybe will prioritize Smash World Tour circuit points over other things. But I don't expect that to be a huge percentage of the player base, even like of the top player base, because I think that players will either feel secure in their points, like they'll like do the Albert and they'll get like 700 points immediately, and they'll be like, okay, well I'll just go wherever I want. I'm not going to get kicked out of this. Or they'll be out of contention and they'll be like, okay, well I don't care about this tournament just because it has the points. I'm not going to make it anyways. So
Yeah, I want to just I think we're kind of nearing the end of this discussion here, and to bring us to the end of it, I'm going to explain because you said you don't know how points are accrued. So I want to talk about this, and I want to talk about its relationship to rankings. So points are accrued. You have, I believe it's your top three gold placings, your top three platinum placings. I believe it's your top six silver placings. So if you go and you get, third, seventh, ninth, I was gonna say 14th, Jesus Christ, 49th, right? The 49th doesn't count, even if that was the first one you got. And like this style of idea is obviously something that's not it's not only Melee that does this, it's not only Smash, this is not something new to us, but this is something that it'll get the blur in my DMs and something about this, about how we need to have a ranking system that instead of punishes people for doing bad, you only need to count the top blank results
Oh
they
my God,
have.
kill me.
So this is kind of an interesting thing, and we are like seeing the dichotomy of people will have to weigh going to an event where they might not like it might not count, right? That's the incentive to go to your 10th Smash World Tour Gold event is because it might not count and you only can gain something. But because it's a ranking event for the PGR, because that's a different thing, is that it does count. So it's like, the people who see counting stuff with the ability to do poorly as something that disincentivizes them, it still exists within a thing that is like meant to incentivize you to go to all this stuff. So Chroma, my question for you is, what can you say right now on the show that does not get blurred to come in my DMs saying that we need to change the PGR to fit this Smash World Tour style rule?
I just don't think the PGR can do that, and for two reasons. Number one, we don't know exactly which tournaments will be the hardest to place well at, and I think we know that placing is not as important as head-to-head in terms of how we're evaluating how people did for a variety of reasons. And the second thing is that when you go down into the rankings, I really don't want a situation where somebody who's ranked in, let's say, the 80th to 100th range really just outranks everyone else because they were able to fund 12 major tournaments and they just had 3 that were very good. Whereas, their overall performances we know were about the same as everybody else, but they just had the external ability and free time and capital to make it to those tournaments. Whereas other players of similar or higher talent went to a good amount, but just weren't able to wipe out their bad performances as much. I mean, even outside of, consistency versus peaks, I think those two things are just very antithetical to what we want out of something like a top 100. We really don't want a situation where we are saying, well, if you want to be top 100, you got to go to 10 majors. I think that's not healthy. I think it definitely drives attendance. I don't think it's good for rising players.
Yeah, I think it does put a financial gate on the game. I'm in agreement.
I will say, though, we've seen a lot of top players complain about rankings, and not once have they argued in favor of lower level players. Right? They're always saying that these locals shouldn't count, without seeing the people like Kadoran, who literally got ranked because of locals last year or 2019.
The year
basically.
before, yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a really good point.
Turned out that was predictive. Him doing well at those locals. Turned out
Who
maybe he's going to do
knew?
well at some major. Yeah, who knew that maybe
Who knew?
competitions are competitions, and
Instead, we should have, instead of Kudoran, we should have someone who the top 100 should be filled out by people who got 33rd and 49th at Big House and Genesis, right? And would just figure it out from there. Definitely, that would be the most representative of everyone's skill. We're about nearing the end of this here, but I have a feeling that Smash World Tour and rankings and stuff, this will be stuff that comes back in. Does anyone want to make a point right now, and then we can point to ourselves and link the video next time someone says some head ass shit? Chroma, I figured.
Wait, no, I thought you were saying how to roast me in the future for something I'm about to say. I'm gonna make a call now.
Do whatever you want.
All right, I'm gonna do that thing that I thought of because I'm stupid. But essentially, I think there are going to be people that run to every event and collect a huge amount of points and squeak in, and then they just get 2 hard brackets,
The Remen.
2 hard matches in bracket, and then that's it. And they place about as well as someone with much less points that played well. And that, in reality, no matter how many points I get, I'm not going to beat Pleb. So, as much as we think it's really important to farm these points, it's, it might be immaterial in the end.
My belief right now is that there are multiple ways that this can go. The intersection of Smash World Tour and the community at large, the intersection of a circuit and our own rankings, which are owned by the same people who are running a circuit. That one is luckily something that we don't know enough to touch on right now, because if we did, that would be a whole other can of worms. But no, there's a lot to mention here. And I think what I'm going to say is my belief is that the most likely thing to happen is probably none of it blows up in our faces horribly. All of these nightmare scenarios we're coming up with are not the most likely to happen.
Well, I don't know if I'd call them nightmare scenarios.
They're just more really annoying, right? In practice.
Well, I mean, if the scene is completely fragmented, that's a nightmare scenario.
Yeah, but there's no way that happen.
That's what I'm saying, right? Is that all of this stuff is kind of what we're gonna have. We're still gonna have people complain about rankings as if they're like a boogeyman, and it's like this amorphous thing where they every player is suddenly shafted by rankings, but they're all shafted in different ways. we're still gonna have that, but like, yeah, I think all of the worries about Smash World Tour are gonna fizz out. It's not gonna be a biggest deal, and probably all the gain from Smash World Tour, Ambi, you're right, it might not be all it's made up to be. What's probably most likely to happen is it's gonna be a pretty good event featuring some, like Edwin said, featuring some amazing players from international places we wouldn't see before. It's not going to suddenly dictate the scene, but it's also, it's probably not going to harm the scene to like an irreparable place. So I love this discussion, but I think I got to end this by saying, what's mostly going to happen is probably nothing.
Agreed. I think just the greater point that I wanted to make is I definitely think that if Smash World Tour wants their circuit to have like a greater presence in the scene's consciousness beyond just like the 15 players on the bubble for making the last couple slots, I definitely think they're going to need to do a better job marketing. I think that was a big weakness of the last two tries that they had, where I just felt like nobody knew what was happening the entire time until like we had this cool event with like Chape. But I think
I will say it seems like it's already been better marketed, and that's just kind of the beauty of a circuit in a sense. But I agree. I hope that they're able to continue to push these events, because we are seeing some cases of stuff in the community where it's hard to know if it's just not being Nintendo or if the marketing could be better. And I guess the easiest answer is probably a combination of the two. But yeah, I will say, after all the little holes I tried to poke in Smash World Tour, it's just my brain kind of whirring and whizzing. I do believe that this event will be it'll be something that we look back on. I think we'll appreciate it. Maybe people won't love it as the next summit or whatever, but I think it'll be appreciated because what it's doing is unique, and it's trying something, and I like that. Chroma, we're at the point of the show, where we're getting some patrons to ask you questions.
Oh,
yeah. This one's on me. I kind of forgot to ask. So,
yeah. What do we got?
Edwin, do you want to ask?
Do I have any questions that I have?
Well, I guess I was gonna say, do you want to ask what Contra asked? But do you have any questions?
Let me just double check.
Should I short Tesla? Tell me.
Contra had. Contra would like to ask.
Answer
it. It's one word, Edwin.
Why? Is that it?
Yeah.
Why?
Promo, why?
Oh yeah. Okay, so to answer Ambi first and to dodge for a little bit. Short Tesla, you definitely want to short Elon on memeing, I think. I think a lot of people are kind of getting pissed off at just him being sad that he lost his like ex-wife to a trans woman and like mad tweeting about it. I think people are kind of sick of his shit. Though some people will never be sick of his shit. We'll see what happens. Wild world out there, but interest rates go down, meme pricing goes back up, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. Number two, not investment advice. Number two, why? Yeah, I don't know. Contra, I am disappointed with your lack of self-faith that you demonstrated when I asked you HBox's question, which is, of course, go back 2 years ago.
Oh, no.
You have a button that you can press that sends you back 2 years, but COVID doesn't exist. Do you do it? And everyone was like, well, no, because I had a pretty good 2 years, and it worked out for me.
I started working out.
Yeah, it was great for
lost
me.
Weight. And hey, it made me reevaluate. I got a new job.
I obviously needed the specter of a global pandemic and 1 million Americans and 6 million people dying and, tens of thousands of people getting very sick and hundreds of thousands of people losing their job. I needed that. That was important. I don't have any faith in myself to achieve those things.
All over again.
Right. And someone was like, yeah, I don't know. COVID was bad, but like, I don't want to have to take my tests again. And it was upsetting. And Contra was like, well, I don't know if I meet Jade. I don't know if I meet Jade.
You can meet
get with
Jade.
them. And I'm like, oh my, have any self-confidence in your life that you would have made this happen, you two. And that's why.
That's why.
Yeah.
What an answer, dude.
Yeah, but Contra, I guess maybe think before you ask Chroma another question.
Yeah, definitely got
deep.
I love Contra so much.
We got one more question.
What's up?
It was really we had. I think these were the only two questions we had. I don't understand what it means, and I hope that you do.
Okay.
And if you don't, then I don't know. Just like talk about them in the most cutting way you can. I guess make them not want to ask a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Contra.
This is from Wills, and they ask, first pick for roller derby doubles. I don't know if you understand that.
Roller derby, absolutely, Mikey, the cheat,
Okay, sounds good.
unstoppable.
That's a
He's
pretty good answer.
he's
That is a good
athletic. He
Now
has
that
he
you
has
bring
the
it- now that
movement.
you bring it up.
You're not stopping him.
Is he dunking this weekend to bring it full
Absolutely,
circle?
or he might throw up again. Okay,
Oh,
so
I think multiple people are going to throw up. I
so
think throwing up
Smash
from
Camp-
dunking's a great reason.
Smash Camp last 3-on-3 basketball were won by some pretty goddamn in shape Smash 64 players.
That's not fair.
It was nuts. They looked much better than everyone else. Like physically, they they looked like in much better shape than everybody else. Were there any other questions? I thought I saw a math one, but I guess not.
I don't remember. Yeah, I'm not signed up for a 3v3 basketball, but I'm willing to. I'll do some pick and
Like
rolls
this.
or something. I'll definitely like, I'll like bait some fouls or whatever.
There's so many questions in here, by the way. I'm now reading it because you told me to leave. There are a bunch of questions.
It must. Have
You
been
gonna ask the
like,
one about Fourier transforms? Like,
Fourier- Yeah, my favorite Fourier
Oh yeah,
transform.
this was like right after I left. I've got a big red line. Okay, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, you can read them if you want, or I can read them.
Oh, let's just do one more.
Oh, okay.
Of your choice.
All right. Man, favorite Fourier transform, probably Fourier Mukai. But that life is behind me, and I'm not an algebraic geometry nerd, so probably something with option pricing that's neat that I can't talk about that much. Best set you've watched that barely anyone knows. Shalim Shady versus Ice.
That's a good pick.
Where Ice
That
goes
is
goes
good pick.
Ganondorf and taunts. Or
That's
I
a
actually
very good
can't
pick.
find the set again when I Google for it. It's that one or one of the many Silent Spectre versus Pink Shinobi sets. There are a couple where he Falcon punches Pink Shinobi, and it's just it's so fucked up that it happens that many times.
Anything else that
Oh, I don't want to
origin?
tag origin. Phantom Tollbooth.
Oh, okay.
So that's a fun one. But anyway, oh my god. Tunox's question once again. I will be answering off the air.
I think that one we've already kind of skirted a line here, so we'll not try to get.
There's no good answer to that. That is not either deeply offensive or vaguely anti-Semitic, I would say. So that's a no.
All right, let's move on.
Moving on.
Who was the guy who lied about the whole? We'll talk about that later. There's the Mark Wahlberg, which is like, and then there's the other.
I would have
guy
stopped
from
him.
The league, and I really forget
Okay,
what he was.
I
They
will
had
say
two
this.
different ways of talking about this.
I think Wahlberg would have stopped it, and it's because he's racist.
Unfortunately, that is probably that is. He's like, of course I would have stopped it. I
As soon as I saw them on the plane, we would have had a problem.
Let's we're gonna do a great point here. We have
What's
one
next?
more. We're I think we're over 2 hours at this point. We've got
I'm so
one
sorry.
more topic or facet of the show, which is of course unnamed technically, but referred to affectionately as Touch and Grass. This is the time where we talk about stuff that's going on in our lives that don't relate to Melee. I'll go first. Oh, sorry, my mic fell. I'll go first to give you guys some time to think. So usually I have something pretty immediately. I was thinking about this yesterday, and I really do not know what occurred in the past 2 weeks. I don't know. I went bowling recently for there's like a baby shower for my cousin, and all the guys went bowling, and I went bowling, and I have not bowled in forever, and I got a 106, which is my highest, which is not even that great. I got a couple strikes. That was fun. But then it came to me, the thing that I was doing most for the past week is very dumb, but I am at liberty to discuss this because I feel like I must. If you know me, or if you watch this podcast on Twitch or YouTube, you will know that I like physical media. I'm like a fan of that. I'm not a Funko Pop guy, but I like CDs and vinyl. What I did is I made I have a spreadsheet of every like CD I own because I double bought some like once or twice, and I was like, here's what I need to do is I need to like stop this from happening. So I have every single CD I own in a spreadsheet with like notes and stuff. Of course. But that I have that for years. And then what I decided to do is I went through all of them, and then I listed the artists who I like who I don't own all their albums. So I was like, I don't own every I was like, I'm okay with Led Zeppelin. I don't own every Led Zeppelin album. So I made a whole list of like what I don't own to like fill out any collection. I don't really know if that was a good use of my time. And also I'm looking at this and being like, yeah, I don't think I want this 2008 Paul Simon album. But I just like, I didn't want to like, make arbitrary decisions. So I was like, I guess I'll put this in the spreadsheet. Yeah, I don't really know where that got me, but it was nice to go take a walk through memory lane, and then there was, I was like, oh, I own this. That's cool. I remember buying that at Amoeba when I was at main stage or whatever. It was a nice little thing. Probably the nerdiest touching grass segment that I've ever had, but it's all about pushing through the vanguard, right? Maybe next time I'll have the nerdiest one. Definitely not at the level of I watch Jackass and Moki watch Jackass. Not that height, but those touching grass moments like these where it makes the other ones so much better. Ambi, you've not been on the show in a while. I'm sure that you got something, right?
Yeah, so I'm definitely gonna out nerd you here. So that feels kind of bad. Yeah, so I have not been on the show because I've been working on my degree. I'm a master's student.
Nice.
And it's a lot of work. So I have to take this course, which it's supposed to round out like all of the math prerequisites that I didn't take because I was a social science person in undergrad. And it's the length of a normal course, but it's 3 courses, which is kind of psycho. I don't know why they decided to do that. But it's linear algebra, multivariable vector calculus, and complex analysis. And it's all just crammed into one semester. So I'm learning complex analysis, and I only have like 3 weeks left to learn complex analysis. But man, that shit's freaky. That's some weird stuff, dude. Complex analysis, it's all like rotating and shit. It's in 4 dimensions. Holy shit. So I've been doing a lot of complex analysis and like problems in the back of a textbook. And it's like so much of my fucking time because there's like the lectures are fucking dog shit. So I have to like read the book 4 times to understand what's going on. And I've been having dreams about complex analysis.
Oh god.
So it's definitely like eating my soul and my brain. But that's what I've been up to. So if you're wondering why I haven't been on the show, I'm not dead. I don't have that many health problems, but I've just been doing complex analysis.
We all just had the normal prerequisite melee stats health problem, which is just like a pretty debilitating stomach issue.
Yeah, that's the melee stats core classic.
Par for the course. Yeah, I don't think you're allowed to be affiliated with melee stats if you don't have some sort of like GERD or acid reflux. That was a fun one, and I will push back on your idea that was somehow nerdier. I think it's nerdier, but also for like a better use. You learn something. I instead like made a list, and I was like, if I ever see this Beastie Boys album, I should buy it, which seems to be less useful to the world and myself. So I think you beat me in some sense, but not in the other. Edwin, this week I bet it's going to be like love for your fellow man or whatever. What are you extolling the virtue of?
Oh my god.
I've just been cooking a lot more lately, which has been pretty fun.
That's such a good answer.
That's a good one.
Was the last time?
I'm so sorry.
I was recommending that.
I think this actually was your answer last time. You had the Blur episode where you.
Yeah, it's still good.
Yeah, what was our last episode?
Cooking rules.
I finished Love Is Blind. I've been on a reality.
No, that was your Blur thing.
That was. Oh,
yeah, God, and then you start talking about how you have to like not be afraid to ask someone out or whatever.
Oh yeah, and then, no, I got owned. Blur was like that. Blur was like, "This is the most useless advice I've ever heard." And I was like, "Why? What's wrong?" You realize that like for most people watching this, like leaving their room is like the first step. How are you going to tell them that it's easy to talk to other people and know what you want?
I think Blur's point was that you can't be yourself because if you're a smasher listening to this podcast, yourself is bad.
Which is really
He's
irrefutable.
killing
I
us.
had no way of
He's
I had
killing
no way of
us.
responding. But yeah,
Well,
I've been
I mean, if it
cooking.
makes you feel any better, he did DM me in response to something that we said in the episode that did not include him pretty late in the episode. So he's getting through these
He's watching
YouTube
them.
VODs.
The only other thing I'd mention is that I'm looking to move out of Boston pretty soon, so that's been
Ah.
kind of a pain in the ass. But
Shipping out of Boston.
We'll talk about where.
just like
we can talk about it later.
Yeah,
if you don't want to
off air.
docs.
The docs.
Yeah. And then Ambi, if you want to talk complex analysis, hit a boy up. But,
well, Chroma, you're a man of mystery. What's been going on with you that you can divulge?
I can't talk about anything professionally, but it's been giving me panic dreams, which is, I think, very fun. I've been having a good time. It's good to feel that rush of being alive. Let's see. I've been playing a lot of Elden Ring. I'm having a great time just being just terrible at the game and winning. And I'll walk away from I just beat Radon, and I'm like, I learned two things. I ain't learned any of his patterns. I chunked it into thing I run away from on the horse and thing that I dodged twice and then I hit him. I'm just I beat it and then I'm just like, wow, I learned so little about how to do this. And it's really just very humbling thinking about it that way. Having a great time with the game. My cat and I play together. She had her first dentist appointment of her life. Perfect. They took out a tooth. She's doing really well. Let's see. I saw my long niece twice this week, which was fun, which is Zane's dog. Zane is dating my sister, and they have Marzipan, who came to visit me, and she is a sweetheart, and I love her, and she's a genius. So that was actually a lot of fun. That was a good time. And I joined a gym in person again, and I realized how afraid of high schoolers I am. Those kids
they're
ain't right.
Kind of terrifying.
Holy shit.
They are. Sorry,
they're just.
Wait. What do you mean? What do you mean? How are you? You're afraid of everything. How are you not afraid of?
I'm never afraid of anything. I'm not high schoolers.
These kids are insane.
You're afraid of your shadow.
I'm not a cat. What does that mean?
They're just snorting pre-workout and shit.
All right.
We will fucking. He'll
talking
to someone and you'll be like, that's so scary.
Not like that at all.
I have mentioned earlier this week about the idea of going to a major and I was like, yeah, we might go to dinner and this guy who we casually know might be there. That's just how majors are. And you said she had an anxiety attack.
I'm just a very intense person, and it takes a lot out of me to not demonstrate that, or to not be around people that understand what they're getting into. It takes a lot of energy. I'm naturally very how do you say
sad,
theatrical.
No, that's not sad. Naturally,
I'm not afraid.
Just you're a very high key guy when it comes down to it.
I love being high key.
Yeah, it's
one of my favorite things. I especially love low key or high key people who act low key.
Speaking of that, I had brunch with Jack recently in New York. Jackzilla. That was wonderful. Nice. I had a great time, and I'm so excited for Smash Camp, where he's gonna be in our bunk.
He is. Our bunk?
Our cabin? I don't know.
He's in our cabin. Jackzilla, probably one of my favorite people who I would never have on this podcast. I feel like he it's confrontational in a way that I assume is intentional, but maybe not intentional to the degree of...
No, we need to have Jack, and we need to have the entire group of posters that he would argue vehemently with from the
Don't
Discord.
Even have us. Don't even
no,
have us.
We're not on there. It's just Jack.
It's Jack versus the Ancoms, straight up.
Oh my god.
Well, they all get boxing gloves. You know what I'm saying?
We'll set that up. We'll get that going down at SmashCon or Smash Camp. No, Jackzilla.
I'm just assuming the Ancoms leave their room.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, but so it's because I really haven't done all that much for the last 2 years, and as COVID hit again, this one felt a little bit worse because it felt like everyone I knew was going out and doing stuff, and I was still well, I don't know, I work around. Well, anyway, I don't want to like, I'm around people that, maybe either can't protect themselves from COVID or like would get pretty fucked up if they got it.
Yeah,
So I
I
feel
know that you're
like
not supposed to say it, but I'll just say it. You work for Queen Elizabeth II.
exactly, and she's pregnant now, which I think
heard
I
We
can
all
say. I
serve,
think we all
we all
know.
serve her too.
Yeah. And it just, I'd feel really bad if I were, as I am her Lord Consort. I feel like giving her COVID is not, in my job description. So,
Yeah,
so getting out there again is pretty fun.
for sure.
Until COVID comes back in like, a couple months.
It's
And-
already
and-
back in China apparently. So.
Woo!
Perfect time for the discourse whenever it comes back, right?
Hell yeah.
Well, fortunately, the discourse, havers of the scene, they're always right.
Keep on coursing.
Never a bad day to have some discourse in the Melee community.
We just now in the timeline, the Thunder Gaming guy came back, and everyone who he stole money or work from just dunked on him all at once, and then I think he retreated back into the swamp of the past sins.
I don't
drowning.
even
missed that.
understand like
That's
why
actually
would you
awesome.
like I can't imagine having that level of like just after already like I just I don't know what's wrong with these people just like coming back like there's got to be something there, right? Like
It
I
rules,
can't-
just gluttons for punishment. They're like, maybe everyone's forgot by now.
The posters have infinite memory, dude. They'll never
Honestly,
forget.
though, not a bad play on their part. They just happened to, they didn't roll the natural 20, or I guess everything but one.
You know who rolled the natural 20 of people forgetting about what they did and being like, whatever, you seem nice? OJ. You seen him on Twitter.
I'm not sure if he has.
I don't know.
He's as good as it ever got, is my point.
Maybe
That's the
Net
best you
19.
can get.
I feel
You
like
got-
Chris Brown has multiple like #1 singles. He's been on like very popular songs.
It's true,
in the
but like
past.
imagine if he didn't. He would be like,
What if we don't talk about the worst people?
yeah,
who
yeah,
sang
that'd be
on
good.
that
That'd be
hit?
good. That'd be good.
Wait,
Sorry.
what about
Juice is loose.
Mahmoud Ahmadinejad's Twitter? That guy's Twitter
Chroma.
was
That did
Wow.
start.
Chroma.
Look, you can't hand it to ISIS, which is not what Ahmadinejad is. I'm just,
Yeah, he's
we're
not.
going down the road of things. Just good
Chroma, we
conversations
talked-
to
you
have
know,
at all times.
we
You know
mentioned-
I am sensitive to and cut the tape.
Chroma.
We mentioned how lovely it is to have discourse, and I think you're one of the loveliest discourse havers in the entire scene. Whenever we can
Jesus.
get you, I think that this was,
We're all
you know
gonna
what?
die.
Not surprising that this ended how it did, with OJ
Pretty
and
good.
ISIS, et cetera. But I think before we got there, the real question was how long will it take before we get there, and I think we got a good 2 hours of discussion.
I made it
so-
almost all the way.
Very close.
Sorry. guys.
Normally at this point we ask if you have anything to plug. I gotta ask. I'm
Yeah?
pretty sure I know the answer. You want to plug anything?
Oh yeah. Smash Camp is gonna be fun. I don't know. Be the change you want to see in the world. It's a good thing. Polish is the goat. I remember Polish just messaged me one day like, "Hey, is there a place to Netplay and talk to each other that isn't so vehemently weird?" And out of that, Melee Online was formed.
Oh, nice.
And that's all really. I mean, you just try to do something. Like if you think Melee's dying, you go do something. That's how the cycles have always worked, right? You go do something, get digging into something that you want to get involved in. Always the perfect time. And yeah, if anyone gets a chance to, no, that's probably a bad idea. Okay.
If
Give
you
us
want to
your
check
plug
out these podcasts, you can find them live on twitch.tv/melee stats. They upload on YouTube at Melee Stats Archive. While you're on YouTube, you can go over to our main channel, Melee Stats. That's where we have our long form content. You can follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/Melee Stats Pod. You will find stuff such as Last Day in Melee. You'll find a meme every month that fails.
It's usually good.
wow, you're still
I
on this.
We
it
got
was a
so
bad
many
meme.
good ones that we aren't posting for some reason.
There's a
Well,
lot
They're
of
not for not reason.
but yeah, if you wanna follow us for Last Day on Last Day at Melee, Last Day in Melee. Oh, God, if you want to follow us for
Night
Last
in
Day in
Melee.
Melee, last night. Usually I don't have issues with this. We all know. You can go through. If you want to follow us, you can do so on twitter.com/MeleeStatsPod. We'll also have links to our articles on MeleeStats.co, such as Monday Morning Marth, with apparently a very spicy one this week, and When's Melee. And if you just love everything we do, you want to support us, patreon.com/MeleeStats. I forgot to say this early in the episode because we just had to get right into it, but if you want to keep an eye out for what we're going to do this week, I will just say it is March, and I think if you are someone who follows Melee Stats in March might be synonymous with a little something. So keep your eye out for that, and I know that we talked about how we have gone bi-weekly as a podcast. I'm happy to say that with a big event like Smash Camp, we are going to be on next week as well. You can catch us. We have a pretty fun episode lined up. I've got some fun guests. So I appreciate you guys for watching. And if you want to pop in next week, I think it's going to be a really great episode. Chroma, you're a wonderful guest. Thank you for being on. Thank you as well, Ambi and Edwin. I think that this was a very neurotic, fun episode. But hey, talking about rankings and discourse like this, I think you got to be a little neurotic.
You know how it is.
I'm ready for that.
Well, thanks everyone for watching, and then we will catch you next week. Peace.